Arnie Bellini. Puts a smile on my face. I've known Arnie for, 20 years. I became a partner of ConnectWise in 2007. So almost 20 years. Yeah. He's the founder of ConnectWise, great software company in Tampa. I'm here in Tampa as well. He started his own, I'm going to say he started the managed service provider industry. We go into it. We talk about what he did at that time. His father worked for IBM. He started a computer company back in 1982. We talk about how that transition happened. And then he started making software to help and was in some peer groups and eventually moved the software out and eventually created ConnectWise, which in 2019 sold to private equity for $1.5 billion. So Arnie says that he's failed at retiring. Which he has, and now he has the Bellini Foundation, Bellini Capital, which is cyber, which is education, and which is conservation. And we go through each of those pillars. I go on site to talk with him at offices here in Tampa from Connect Secure, which is in the portfolio. And it's a great conversation. Like I say, I've known Arnie for a long time. I learned a lot more. I did ask him about discipline, his motivation, etc. But some insight, some things that I just never knew about the man before, and how thankful I am for many of the things that he's brought to our industry. Just a great conversation. Arnie Bellini. Thanks for watching and listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How'd I lose the weight? Just one word, discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission? How do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision, growth through learning from others. So excited to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I'm late. I've got, we just started the new college, and I've told our PR firm, I said, look, you go get me interviews for both AI and cybersecurity, and like anybody, anytime, I will drop everything I'm doing. I'll do the order. So it's just like I'm literally like 12:30. I'm getting ready to head over here, and they're like, "Can you do something at 1
right now?"
I'm like, can I be prepared by then? I guess let's find out. It's like, but so it worked out great though. So sorry about it. It didn't work out good for you. But
No, just fine. I get to talk to Peter a little bit, and
that's not even your last name.
Golf nickname. It's easier.
Golf of America nickname.
It's easier to remember than Pinot. I was having a good weekend. I know you love Pinot, and I know you do. I know. It's just easy to remember. You know me as Pinot, and so yeah, that's.
Yeah, well, come on, what is that? That's like a Russian name. You went
Pinz?
from Italian to Russian.
I was out with some friends. I was playing pretty well. I was getting close to the pin every time, so they just started calling me Joey Pinz, and it just kind of held on.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of held on.
That's good.
And plus, it looks better in print. It kind of lines up and everything, and yeah.
All right, I'm ready when you are.
What's great chocolate to you?
What's that?
Great chocolate. I understand you love chocolate.
I'm not allowed to love chocolate right now.
Who is disallowing you to love it? Your body?
Well, me. So I am the 7th fastest old guy in the United States.
I know.
Okay. And so national championships, last year I got 7th place in my age group for national championships. So basically anyone from the age of 65 or older, I'm the 7th fastest guy. Wow. So I'm trying to improve my ranking. That means I got to get down to 179. Wow. And that means no chocolate. And it's August 7th is the race. So
that's in a week or two. Yeah.
So no chocolate.
Nothing. And what weight are you at now? You look great.
I'm down at about 185 right now, so I've got to somehow find another 5 pounds to get rid of between now and then. I am always been a swimmer,
Yes.
right? I swam the English Channel. I swam, all around Manhattan Island, swam Catalina Channel, done some great swims and had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm like one of the first guys out of the water. And in a triathlon, it's swim, bike, run. So, and I've gotten really good at cycling, and pretty much no one's going to pass me. So I can end up at the very front of the pack out of the water. I can stay there on the bike, but then
The run.
I'm one, at my best, I'm, 5'10", 179, but I'm competing against guys that are 5'10", let's say 150. Wow. So on the run, they start passing me up. So, I mean, I can hold them off for the first 2 miles, and then the last mile, the very last mile, it's like, here they come.
Wow.
So,
and these are full triathlons.
So it's all based on weight. I mean, literally, there's not much else I can do on running other than lose weight to improve my time. So
because just pounding on your, and these are full. I did a lot of Olympic triathlon, not a lot, 5, but these are full triathlons. Are they half?
No, these are sprint.
These are sprint. You said 2 miles.
Yeah, I've done 3 full Ironman, and I'm like, okay, that's enough of that, and it's really taxing on your body.
Yes.
Well, then I started doing some research, and they say, look, as guys get older, it's way better for them to do high intensity training. And so what's great about a sprint triathlon is you're at 170 heartbeats for 50, 60, 70 minutes, depending on the course, right? Wow. You're just full out the whole way. And that's what's really interesting about it.
Jeez. I learned to love the swim. I tolerate the bike, but you're right, the running, I played soccer all my life. Coaches used it as punishment. The run just drove me crazy.
Yeah.
You still love
I enjoy the running part. I mean, what's funny is at 66 years old, I'm faster than I was 21.
Really?
I'm faster than I was in high school. Yeah. So, because it's all mechanics. So it really has very little to do with your body aging. It's the mechanics of the run. And then if you're running the right way, you're not going to injure yourself. And so all of those things put together are what makes it important.
Yeah. And you'll keep doing it. You love it.
Well, yeah. So I've always had, as you know, at ConnectWise, well, maybe you don't know, but at ConnectWise, my mission was always have an incredibly aggressive business goal. And at the same time, you got to have a very aggressive sporting goal on the outside of business to create a balance point. I've always been about, how do you create balance? So that was one of the things that I wanted to do. And so that's when I did the English Channel, right? It's like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm going to do the English Channel. It's like, I got, I'm trying to take at that time, it was like I was trying to take ConnectWise public. Realized that was not something I wanted to be. Did not want to be a public CEO, but $9 million of investment in going public later, I figured that out. But at the same time, I wanted to swim the English Channel. So that was my sort of way of creating balance there.
And tell me about the English Channel. I mean, because if I remember correctly, the first time you couldn't do it, there was bad waves or something, and you tried a second time.
So I trained 2 years to swim the English Channel, and that's crazy training because, you're going to do pyramid training, and you're going to go from, say, swimming 2 miles to all the way up to swimming like 12 miles, without stopping.
Wow.
And that's training for the English Channel. So, you do crazy amount of training. For 2 years, I trained for it. And then in 2012, I had my attempt to swim. And I made it 4 miles from the coast of France. Right. I could smell.
That's right.
I could smell fried foods. I'm like, that's French fries. That's what I kept thinking in my mind, I could smell French fries. I could see the cars going along the coast, but I couldn't get there. And so I went into hypothermia about 4 miles off the coast of France. And I knew it was the smart thing to do was just abort the attempt, come back next year. And I did. I came back next year. I made a list of the 20 things that I could have improved upon. Like, why didn't I make it? And some of them are really minor things, but I made a list of 20 things that I could have done better.
Wow. And
then I addressed all 20 of those things in the next year of training. And in 2013, I made it across, and it was really easy. I was surprised how easy it was. So I think there's a lesson there. You don't give up. You learn from your mistakes. You make yourself a list of what you could do better and get busy working that list. So that's what I did. And in 2013, I made it, and I was really excited about that.
And these goals that you have, I mean, swim in the English Channel is a lofty goal. How did you get that in your mind? How did you?
When I was 9 years old, we moved. Well, first of all, my dad worked for IBM.
That's right.
So to us kids, that doesn't mean international business machines. It means I've been moved. And so we did. We moved every 3 years. So at that time, we had just moved from New York to New Orleans, which, boy, I'll tell you what, there's not you couldn't go from one world to a different, completely different world, right? I mean, when I moved to New Orleans in 1969, they hadn't figured out that the Civil War was over. And so I show up and they said, we have a new student. His name is Arnold Bellini. He's from New York. And they were all, Yankee, go home. And the people that weren't yelling Yankee, go home were saying Arnold Ziffel, because that was the #1 show on TV at the time, was Green Acres, and the pig was Arnold.
That's
so
right.
Here I am, a target, in 3rd grade when we moved. So anyway, point is my dad had us move all the time. And what was interesting about at least the career that I've had is I've always been enthralled and interested and knowledgeable about computers, right? Because, Dad's working for IBM, right? And remember, he took the job with IBM. My father took a job with IBM in 1959.
Wow.
There were only about 40 computers in the world at the time. Wow. 40. Most of them were IBM's computers, but that was the beginning of the whole digital revolution, was right there, 1959. And so, my father was a great salesperson. He was a great engineer. He had a great set of talents, and he was able to sell computers like nobody else. And so he was the branch manager in New Orleans. They moved us to New Orleans in 1969. And then they moved us here to Tampa in 1972 to take on the brand new branch office, IBM branch office here in Tampa Bay. And so we moved here. At that time, there were only 85,000 computers in the world, and only 35 of them were connected to what we now know as the internet.
Wow.
So Tampa had finally arrived as a destination for IBM to say there's enough business here where we think we can actually have a profitable branch office. And so, we're going to get Bellini to come here because he's a superstar. He took New Orleans from bottom of the barrel to #2 in the nation. Let's offer the job to him. So we've never left. But I really feel like our family brought technology to Tampa Bay.
Very interesting.
And so I've always felt a responsibility for the Bellini family to continue that mission and to usher in the next wave of technology and the next wave, and to bring Tampa Bay into the forefront as a technology sector of excellence in the United States, not just Silicon Valley. And here in Tampa Bay, we're doing amazing things.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a large number of very mature cybersecurity companies, a ton of cybersecurity startups, and now we have the Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity. So what I've done is I've taken a page out of Silicon Valley's playbook and have applied it here to Tampa Bay. We have everything. So at ConnectWise, one of my missions, the big mission at ConnectWise, so actually it's this, the story I'm telling here is the building of an ecosystem. So the technology ecosystem in Tampa Bay started in '72 when our family moved here and opened up the branch office for IBM. All of a sudden, all the companies in town were being pitched computer systems, and they eventually bought. So, and then in 1982, I had just graduated from college, and I had taken a job with Price Waterhouse, and the PC came out. I was a technology consultant for Price Waterhouse, and I saw that the PC was going to be power to the people. Everyone was now able to have compute power under their own roof. And I even saw a day when we would be holding it in our hand, and I thought, this is just, Moore's Law is just going to dictate that eventually we're going to have massive compute power that we have right at our disposal in a mobile format. And so that's all come true. And so what's interesting is what we did is at ConnectWise, I've always been working on building the technology ecosystem in Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay had not had any large technology software company come out of Tampa Bay. So that was one of my goals was, well, could I be the first to do that? Now, everyone told me I needed to move to Silicon Valley, and I said, I don't think I need to do that because Tampa Bay is an amazing place to build a company, raise a family. And so I just stuck to my guns there, and sure enough, we planted ConnectWise in the fertile soil of Tampa Bay, and everything that we needed was here. But I also realized there are a few things that could make it much better, and one of those was we didn't have a lot of technology talent in the Tampa Bay area. And so that's when we started. I said, well, gee, if I build a big technology company and if I do great training for the management team, then they'll end up, going elsewhere and starting new companies or being, C-level people at mature technology companies. And so the whole idea was you've got to have a talent base that's really knowledgeable in the Tampa Bay area. And in so many ways at ConnectWise, we actually brought that forward. So, the management team, we have so many of my colleagues that I worked with at ConnectWise are now starting their own companies in technology or are CEOs of mid-growth companies or even large companies. And my son's just a great example of that. I mean, Peter with connectsecure.com, amazing company, built right here in Tampa Bay, creating jobs in Tampa Bay, has 2,500 customers globally for vulnerability management, is really affordable, is an MSP first solution, so it's multi-tenant, very comprehensive, very affordable, and they're capturing the industry by storm. And so, again, another great company coming out of Tampa Bay. And Peter was a ConnectWise colleague for 8 years. In fact, Peter, my son, who's now CEO of connectsecure.com, he started by putting memory chips on motherboards.
Wow.
And, in the early 80s when he was just, like 10 years old, he's like a kid. So he's always been around it. And that's always been the Bellini family tradition is you're in the computer business. We're Italian. A lot of Italians work in leather and design. We happen to work in zeros and ones, software architecture. And so that's been our thing. So as I built ConnectWise, I said, all right, well, we're going to be able to create a good talent base here. Now I need to, when I sell the company, I need to only offer it to Silicon Valley private equity firms to bring attention to the opportunities that are here, not just ConnectWise, but there's plenty of other good software companies at the time that were getting started, and a lot of them have matured now and have gotten great investments. But we wanted to attract their attention to Tampa Bay instead of just always focusing on Silicon Valley. There's great stuff in Florida, and we proved that. So, Thoma Bravo bought us for like $1.5 billion, and that was the first, unicorn in the Tampa Bay area. But what was great about it is we made 74 millionaires when we sold the company because I gave stock to all the colleagues.
Yes,
that was also by design because if they had a nice, share the profit, I think is always a great idea. But I mean, the other incentive there was, all right, I've trained them. We've got a talent base. They've got money. They can go start companies, when we transact the company. And now all of a sudden I'm going to create this whole network effect in the Tampa Bay area, and it'll just keep growing and expanding. The one thing that we're missing here, so I felt like we made a great contribution to the ecosystem, the technology ecosystem in Tampa Bay. And as I said, I've always felt like the Bellini family's obligation is to continue that mission. And so that's when I decided the missing piece was Silicon Valley's got Stanford. We don't have a Stanford, okay? That's when, Lauren and I, my wife, decided to invest $40 million at the University of South Florida to create the brand new Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity. And so that college is my version of Stanford for the Tampa Bay area. University of South Florida is an American accredited university. It's an AAU university. I believe there's 65 of them in the world, most of them in the United States, or all of them in the United, no, some are in Canada, some are in Canada. That's a high level of accreditation. It means that you're doing research at a top-notch level. It means that, your curriculums are all in line. And so, it's a great honor to be an American accredited university. So we're going to play, and Stanford is one, and Vanderbilt is another. And, so the creme de la creme, MIT is another. So the creme de la creme schools, we are now in that league at the University of South Florida. Wow. So we're going to be providing amazing research and development with the business community. That is what happened in Silicon Valley. Stanford, not only did they create the talent, and the talent would go directly into the companies in Silicon Valley, but then they would do research and development for those companies, and it became a virtuous cycle, right? We got talent going out, we got research and development coming in, and that cycle just kept going. And in Silicon Valley, it's a large reason for the success of Silicon Valley. And then, of course, the investors show up, right? So we now have the investors that have shown up here in Tampa Bay. We have the talent pool, and we now have our version of Stanford, the Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity. So I feel like, in so many ways, I remember my father was very nervous in '72 when we moved to Tampa Bay, because he said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make quota in Tampa Bay. There's just not that much business. And so, I mean, that's obviously every IBM salesperson is worried about making quota. And he had a responsibility for building a sales team in Tampa Bay that could also make quota. His biggest concern was, I don't know if there's enough business in the Tampa Bay area. And what I think is great is that not only was there, but because of the technology that he brought forward in those early days, so much productivity was created inside of those companies, which created jobs, which created more need for compute power and more prosperity in the Tampa Bay area. So in so many ways, when you have a strong technology sector in your community, those are the best jobs you can create. They're high-paying, high-tech jobs. They don't have any impact on the environment, not really, okay? And then, once you've got those high-paying, high-tech jobs, it supports all the other jobs that come, that are needed, service and support type jobs and positions. So, we're all about growing the economy of Tampa Bay. In fact, my commitment when we sold ConnectWise was that my thank you to Tampa Bay would be 70,000 high-paying, high-tech jobs. And so I'm about 15,000 into that right now. Wow. But I still got a ways to go. But what's really interesting is when I made that commitment, I put it on a spreadsheet and I said, if you do create 70,000 tech jobs in Tampa Bay, you're going to pay for over half of Hillsborough County.
Wow. And
if you did that, you'd have to have some compensation for that from an environmental standpoint. And so that's when I said, all right, if I am successful here, I've got to have a compensating strategy for the ecology so that I make sure that I stay in balance, right? That my mission is a balanced mission. And what was interesting about that is because I thought that thought, I said, okay, so what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I don't know anything about ecology. I don't know anything about sustainability. I'm not an environmentalist. Heck, I'm a Republican. But I want to do something. What can I do? And what I found is that, a person like me is pretty useful in that space because we move at the speed of tech versus hugging trees. So we got busy, and I said the best thing I could do would be to literally make real this notion of the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And so the Florida Wildlife Corridor was something that I learned about 5 years ago. What is the corridor? Well, if you think about the Everglades, everyone knows the Everglades. The whole southern tip of Florida is the Everglades. But it doesn't stop at the southern tip. It actually runs through the center of the state, from the Everglades all the way through the center of the state, and then up into Alabama and Georgia. And it's a wildlife corridor that starts down there and it goes all the way up. In fact, if you follow it, it continues all the way up the Appalachian Trail.
Wow.
And so this is the major migratory pattern for birds and animals. And it's unbroken in the state of Florida. That is the amazing thing. Wow. It still is actually intact in the state of Florida. Now, it's a patchwork of a lot of different properties. It could be row crops, citrus, timber, but the lands are all open, right? Ranch land, all of it. It's a patchwork of different types of properties, but they're all still open. So, we have the Florida panther in the state of Florida, which is really our emblem for the wildlife corridor because it's endangered species. It's the only puma species east of the Mississippi River that is roaming its natural range.
Wow.
It's the only one, okay? It's the only one, right? So we have the only intact wildlife corridor. So what I did is I went to the state of Florida. And, I think President Trump's right. If you write checks, you can get in front of the right people. So I had to write some checks. I got in front of the right people. But when I got in front of a great gentleman, great politician, great statesman, Wilton Simpson, who is now our Commissioner of Agriculture here, great gentleman, good Southern gentleman. I sat across from him and we were having a steak dinner. And he was cutting into his steak, and I said, Wilton, can you give me a copy of the state's green infrastructure plans? First thing I asked, right? He just dropped his knife. He looked at me, he goes, Arnie, we don't have one of those green infrastructure plans. In fact, we wouldn't even do a good job of creating one. But if you want to make one, send it to us, and if we like it, we'll do it. And so I was really surprised by that. He was so genuine, but what he really was saying there is a great lesson in civics, because what he told me is, he goes, the government is open for business, okay? We're here to do whatever is good for the citizens. And we don't necessarily know what that is. We'll pass laws. You can ask us to pass laws, but we're not going to come up with a green infrastructure plan. We need the citizens of the state of Florida to speak up and say they want one. So I said, okay, great, I will take on that challenge. And so what we did is, in conjunction with this concept of the Florida Wildlife Corridor, I said, well, you know what? This would be a great starting point. If we can get the 18 million acres, which represent the Florida Wildlife Corridor, if we can just put a proper noun on that, a name, so it's a legal entity, that's all I really want. So we actually worked to get a bill passed that actually recognized the 18 million acres as a legal entity known as the Florida Wildlife Corridor. Now, once you have a legal entity, and by the way, that's how the Everglades got started. They started off with a legal entity, right? Everglades is also a legal entity, right? So now the Wildlife Corridor is a legal entity. Once you have the legal entity, you can get interesting things done. It puts it on the map. It lets you market it. It lets you recognize what it is. It puts it in the spotlight. But then it's also able to get funding then, way easier from the state. And so since then, we've been lobbying with the state, and we've gotten $3 billion of state funding dedicated towards conserving the 18 million acres of the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So we're very excited about that. And we're not just stopping at the state level. We've gone to the counties now. So I've got a whole team that's working at the county level, where we're actually asking counties to tax themselves for conserving their own land. Put a penny tax, extra penny on your sales tax, and then use that money to save your wild places. And so we've actually successfully gotten 5 counties in the state to do that.
Wow.
And we're working with another 12 now. So we're having a lot of success there. We're going to go to the federal level next. And so at the federal level, one thing that we can do, which is really very clever, now this is where being a CPA comes in handy. So at the federal level, just like Wilton Simpson told me, Arnie, we ain't got no green infrastructure plan. It's like, I've already looked at the federal level. Guess what? The federal government ain't got no green infrastructure plan, right? So I've come up with a very simple green infrastructure plan for the state of Florida, or I'm sorry, for the United States of America.
Wow.
And it is in the form of 2 sentences, modification of a tax code. So there's a tax code, the 1031 tax code says that if you buy real estate and you sell that real estate at a profit, you're going to pay taxes on that. You're going to pay ordinary taxes on that. Unless you reinvest that money in like property, we will not issue any tax on that. So that's what the 1031 tax code lets you do. Well, we're going to get it modified so that you don't pay taxes if you receive money or profit or conservation easement money for any designated zone where property is in a designated zone that the state says, hey, we'd like to protect this area. In the state of Florida, state would say, hey, yeah, we'd like this Florida Wildlife Corridor entity to qualify for that federal tax exemption. So anyone that's in the Florida Wildlife Corridor that receives, say, a conservation easement, they don't pay any taxes on it. That's where we're going for. And why are we doing that? Well, because right now, if I have a $10 million piece of property that's in the Wildlife Corridor, a developer will offer me $12 million for it.
Really?
But after tax dollars, they're only going to keep, $8 million of it. Well, conservation easement could pay them $9 million, way less than the developer, but after taxes, they still keep the $9 million, so it's a better deal. So a lot of land goes to real estate development for that reason. So if we get this very small little tax code change, it wouldn't even impact the budget in the United States of America very much, but it would be a green infrastructure plan that they could give quotas to every state, or they could divvy it up evenly amongst the states, and they wouldn't even have to fund very much of it. So I've got a plan for that, and we're going to the federal level to get that done. And I never thought I would be working in politics at all, but turns out, guess what? Turns out that technology entrepreneurs are really good at it. And, you can see what Elon Musk did as Doge, and I know there's a lot of controversy on that, but what he did was fantastic, and what he put in place is fantastic. And the reason that he did it, or the reason he was able to do it, is because he thinks like a tech entrepreneur. He is the consummate tech entrepreneur, right? So when you think about things from a zoomed out perspective and apply first principles, and don't worry about how people are doing it today. Just say, I assume everything's up for grabs. It could be redone, repurposed, or rethought. You bring technology to the table, and you bring that type of thinking to the table, and all of a sudden, all the problems that we have today, you can solve them in a very different way. Wow. So that's really the approach that I've taken. I'm a big Elon Musk fan. And
I am too.
Yeah.
It would seem that this conservation runs both sides of the aisle. Is it bipartisan?
That's what's great about it. So when we lobbied and we talked to a lot of legislators at the state level, and what was great is when it was put up for a vote in the House of Representatives, it was unanimous.
Wow.
And then when it was put up in the Senate, it was unanimous.
Wow.
So it was unanimously passed. Every single legislator in the state of Florida voted for it.
Wow.
It was really great.
Wow, speaks
really
volumes.
Great.
What can people of Tampa and generally of Florida do to help in this?
Join the movement. So you can go to livewildly.com, which is our family foundation that promotes the concept of balancing economy and ecology, which is what I've been saying the whole time. So I realized I don't need to just do that for Hillsborough County. I'm going to pave over half of Hillsborough County by creating 70,000 jobs. Well, you know what? We're actually now working on creating a balance of economy and ecology in the entire state of Florida. And what's really great about that is we've had so many wins, and we've figured out so many ways to do it. And we're now getting calls from other states saying, hey, what's going on in Florida? You guys got something going on. What's going on down there in Florida? And so we're actually, giving them our playbook. And so what's happening here in Florida is now starting to happen in other states as well. And we're really excited about that. So I would have never thought that I would have success in that area.
So cool.
But I think it's encouraging to know that if you've got a good business sense, and if you're pretty aggressive and you don't worry about the legacy of the way things were done, and you are willing to zoom out and look at it to see how can I solve the problem with all the technology that's available today, you can have a huge impact. And there's a lot of technology that we brought into this whole concept of the Florida Wildlife Corridor and saving it. So it's all based on technology.
Wow.
Yeah.
You specifically tried to help the Florida panther. You mentioned before how crucial it is. Should we be worried about the pythons introduced unnaturally to the environment here?
Well, of course. They're not supposed to be here.
Right.
And so it's a problem because the python and the panther really are in competition for game. And pythons are really good at, eating up small game like rabbits and raccoons and the like, right? Mice, rats, that's all good fare for both panther and python. So we do have a problem with pythons. In the state of Florida, we are working on technological ways to try and rid them, infrared, drones, can spot them now. Wow. So, and in fact, we've got a python hunt that I'm going to be doing just in like 2 weeks from now.
Really?
Where we're getting a lot of the legislators together. We're all going to go hunt pythons down about 50 miles west of Miami. So,
oh, wow,
to bring attention to it. Yeah.
I see.
So, and the panther, what's great about the panther is the wildlife corridor is the panther's roaming range, and panthers need 400 miles. So, when you think about what's the habitat of a puma or a panther, 400 miles is their range. That's huge. So they need that amount of space they as their ranging area, right? But we've had great success since we've gotten started. So, the population of panther in Florida was about 200, and we unofficially believe that it's about 1,000 now. And we're seeing that the panther has always been confined all the way to the southern parts of the Everglades, and it's now starting to range further north. It's now, and we have had credible ranchers who have told us that they've seen panther cubs on their ranch as far north as, as far north as Tampa.
Wow.
So, and we have pictures of them as far north as, say, Charlotte. Port Charlotte. So that's great news. They're actually starting to repopulate their natural range, and their population is coming back, which presents its own set of problems, but we'll deal with those, right? That's a good problem for us to deal with, right? We're actually rescuing the panther, you have to rescue their range in order to rescue the panther. So,
because they're top of the food chain, but the problem was they didn't have enough land.
Problem is there's two problems. So, yes, they've been chased south, if you will. Very similar to the Seminole Indians, okay? So it's like the state of Florida's, because the center part of the state is still pretty wild. It's like it was the last inhabited areas for the Seminole Indians. And by the way, the Seminole Indians, the only Indian tribe that was never conquered and never relocated.
Interesting.
So there was attempts made. They never were actually fully relocated. They all escaped down. They kept going further south, and they ended up in the Everglades, right? Well, the same thing's happened to the panther. It's like, okay, development, we got to go further south. They're in the Everglades where they won't be disturbed, and now they're starting to come back north of that. The problem with this is that we have constricted the water flow in the Everglades. So the Everglades is actually flooded more than it ever has been, meaning there's not as much dry land. And it's seasonal out there. So it's like there's times of the year where you will have islands that appear above water, and the panther will inhabit that area, right, in the right seasons, right? But now the water level is so high that those islands never emerge now. So we have that problem. So if everything's underwater, you're not going to have small game for the panther. But now the panther's also got the python in there competing for the small game that's been diminished. So
it's a tough chase there. So other than joining Live Wildly, people in Tampa, people in Florida, how do we keep up with it? That's the best way?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to do it. There's not a whole lot that, what we want Floridians to do and the people in Florida to do is we want them to get out and enjoy the wild spaces. And so that's one of the things that we do at Live Wildly is we just put out, the 5 cool places to be in the summer in Florida, right? So we're featuring the Florida Springs, right? Because our springs are very much a unique part of the state of Florida. You won't find them in almost any other part of the world. And so what's really interesting about that is the Florida Aquifer is where we don't have many rivers, but we have the Florida Aquifer, which is this limestone base of the state that water now literally has rivers going through the aquifer. And what's interesting is some places that comes to the surface and creates a stream or a river. Example would be Crystal River. And so the water there, because it's underground, is 72 degrees when it comes up out. So it's one of the coolest places you can hang out in the state of Florida right now is at Florida Springs. And we have so many of them. So that would be one example. We have the best state park system in the United States of America.
Really? Why?
Because we're amazing. Florida's fortunate because 10 million of the 18 million acres of the Florida Wildlife Corridor are already in state hands.
I see.
And a lot of that is state parks. So the state of Florida has won the National Park Awards this just past year. Here in 2025, they won it. They won it like 5 other times, and they had to change it so that the state couldn't win every year because we were winning every single year. So what a lot of people don't know is we have the very best state park system and best opportunities and variety of wild places that you can go to. And we have 10 million acres that is already preserved, and we're working on preserving the other 8 million acres in some way, shape, or form to save the wildlife corridor.
You mentioned Crystal River. I think that's where I went to go see the manatees.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
The manatees are up there. Yeah, it's great things to see. Seven Sisters Springs is definitely something you should go try to enjoy. It's one of the coolest places, and I've swum in those springs, and you're going down to where the water's coming up out of the aquifer, and you can go down and feel the stream coming out. But there's also manatees that will swim in there.
Yes.
So it's really, there's a lot of nature in Florida, and that's what we're trying to do. We're saying, look, we have the fastest growing economy. We have the fastest growing population. We're still just shy of 1,000 people moving to Florida every day.
Crazy.
Every day, okay? So what's really important, and the state recognizes it, and so do we, is that there needs to be this balance between our economic growth and our unique ecology, and to keep those in balance is important. And by the way, California missed that lesson, or they flunked that lesson, okay? They grew, they had a great opportunity. They're, I think, the 7th largest economy in the world if you took them out, as a single state. They didn't balance. They made a lot of mistakes in California. That's why you see LA burning, okay? It's like LA burned because they're not controlling their ecology. They burned out their ecology with their economy, and they never put it in balance. And it's kind of too late now. It's just too expensive to actually get it in balance. State of Florida has not made that mistake, and we will not make that mistake. So we're very much focused on creating this balance between economy and ecology. And that was something that we really got the state to focus on. And what I was really proud of is hearing Governor DeSantis say it. So I've heard him say it like 3 or 4 times. I'm like, yes. It doesn't matter if I'm saying it, but it does matter if he's saying it.
The governor says it.
Yeah.
You said you use a lot of the skills in tech to help in this conservation effort. What new skills did you have to learn to help in that effort?
Patience. Yeah. So as a tech entrepreneur, I am not a patient person. Yes. That's why I am cut out for technology, I think. But if you're in politics, you better be patient. What did I learn? I guess what I found is that, how did we have success? Well, we went up there and we presented like we would be presenting to our largest client, okay? So we said, we got to have a great presentation. We got to have a great story. We have to have a simple message, and we have to tell it very, very, effectively. And if we did all of those things, then we'll see what happens. Well, that's what we did. Now, when we did this and got the Corridor Act passed, I was surprised because all the legislators told me, they said, that was fantastic. And I said, what was fantastic? Your presentation was fantastic. It's like, so what are you talking about? You always get presentations like that. It's like, no. No, usually people come up here and they're just crying for whatever they want. And they just pour mouth on us, and if they got a presentation that's really, not very great. And you guys, you wowed us, with, I brought in, it wasn't just bringing anyone, I brought in Carlton Ward, and actually it was Carlton Ward that inspired me to do this. So Carlton Ward is a very famous National Geographic photographer. I call him the Ansel Adams of Florida.
Really?
His work is amazing, and he's photographed so many great scenes in the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So I brought, it was Carlton and I said, Carlton, you're the story. I need a story to get this across the goal line. You've got the story with your photo albums, okay? It's the state of Florida and its wild places and the panther. And if we get those pictures and those stories in front of the legislators, they're going to want to do something about it. And so that's what we did. And so we brought Carlton up there, had a great story about saving the corridor, and they bought off on it and they signed up for it. And they still continue to sign up for it, which is really amazing. Now, what was interesting about that is the state of Florida was known for conservation about a decade ago. And being honest, it's like when Governor Scott came in, he cut all of the conservation efforts. He cut the money back so that it basically, he killed the conservation movement in the state, And now, I'm not saying he did the wrong thing. I don't know what the budget circumstances were at the time, but I was bound and determined to reinvigorate it. And so that was what we really did with the Wildlife Corridor Act and then the $3 billion. We got the conservation movement started in a very serious way, but we don't call it conservation now. Conservation's an old term, by the way. It's like, we already missed our opportunity to conserve.
Interesting.
We now to be focused on sustainability is what we need to be focused on now. And so when I go and talk to politicians, I talk to them about we got to make the state sustainable and that's really the concept of the balance of economy and ecology. It's like sustainable says that you'll never burn out your ecology because you neglected your ecology. Sustainable says you'll have an economy because you're not 100% focused on preserving everything that you have in your ecology. There has to be a balance between the two. One, if you focus on one too much, you choke out the other. You need both. And you need to have it in a stable, equalized stasis, okay, where it has to be in the state of stability, right? So it's really about sustainability. And then a lot of things come into that. So for instance, 60% of the wildlife corridor is where the Florida citizens get their water. You want to talk about stopping economic growth? Run out of water.
Wow.
That'll stop you dead in your tracks, okay? And we do have several regions in the state of Florida, Davenport being one of them, where you can't pull the building permit anymore because there's no water left.
Wow.
They can't get you water, so they're not letting you build there. So you want to talk about stopping your economic growth? Run out of water, right? So that's one example. Also, the wildlife corridor is our food belt in the state of Florida. So you want to talk about food safety? I thought that was really important. I think we made sure we understand the importance of having food safety now that we've gone through the pandemic. We need to be able to produce our own food, not just in the state, but the United States needs to be able to produce its own food. And I've worked with a lot of Florida ranchers and citrus growers and farmers, and because of the trade. And I like what President Trump's doing with tariffs because it's very difficult to make a profit in the citrus industry because Brazil comes in and undercuts our prices,
really?
with their citrus product, right? Well, good on them. They're allowed to do it. Go ahead and do it. But my point is that we need to be growing our own food in the United States of America, and Florida is one of those great places that a lot of the food is produced, Florida and California.
It certainly is. When that act got passed in 2021, Arnie, and you're pivotal in that. And do you celebrate that victory? What is that feeling like?
I don't celebrate too much because there's always the next mountain to climb, right?
That's not good though, right?
Well, no, we celebrated, okay? But I mean, we celebrated that day and then we said, okay, now what do we need to do, right? I mean, just like if you won a football game, it's like we're going to celebrate, we're going to celebrate tonight and Monday, and then we're going to be back on the practice field Tuesday, right? I mean, we had to be back on the practice field because once we got the act passed, realized that the whole conservation movement in the state had been killed. So what does that mean? That means that all of the agencies that had employees that were doing conservation or sustainability were all let go. So like nobody's got a staff for this. Now all of a sudden, and by the way, I didn't ask for any money. I said, just give me the name, Wildlife Corridor. Give me the entity. I don't want any money. Just give me the entity. Well, the very first year, they liked the idea so much that they not only gave us the name and the legal entity, but they gave us $430 million to start conserving land. And so we realized, well, okay, we got to go down to the agency level, and we've got to encourage them to build their staff back up so they can deploy this money in conservation easements out to the state landowners. And so that was a challenge. So there's always, you look at a system, it's like, okay, great, we got the entity, we got the name. Now you go down the whole supply chain and make sure that that's all working. Well, it had died, right? Because there'd been no money for conservation, so nobody was even thinking about it anymore. So we got just the agencies at the state level. We've been working with them to help them in any way. We provide grants to them in some cases for them to get certain things done that they maybe need done. We're working with the University of Florida, so we've given them grants to do the science and the research necessary for us to make good decisions on where to put the money. And yeah, I mean, We work with the land trust in the state of Florida. So the land trust are the companies that actually will go retire that land, and then they are the stewards of that land in many cases. They need to make sure that the conservation easements are all the things that the landowner agreed to do. Now that the land's conserved, that they are doing that, right? So you have land trusts. You have probably 20, 25 of them in the state of Florida that their job is to get the money out to the actual landowners, from the agencies down to the landowners. And so there's a whole supply chain that we had to then reinvigorate. So we gave grants down the whole supply chain to get them going again. And now they're going strong. And we're very proud of that. We're very excited about that. So,
what was the pushback or obstacles that you had to overcome to get this done?
It was education. I think almost all obstacles are always knowledge, the lack of knowledge that someone may have, right? I mean, if you want to champion a cause, then you need to have a good understanding of why you're championing it and why it matters and why anyone else should care, right? So you do the Simon Sinek, start with why, right? So if you remember, he was my keynote speaker, I want to say in 2014, way back when.
Yeah.
And so start with why, right? Why would anyone even care? And the answer is because 60% of your water comes from there, because your food safety is based on that, because because every dollar, and we hired McKinsey, by the way, and company. We said, we gave them $500,000 to do a report before we went to the state, by the way, saying, give us all the reasons why it makes sense for the state to save the wildlife corridor. And we came up with some interesting conclusions. 60% of the water, for every dollar that you put into the wildlife corridor, you get $6 back in the economy.
Wow.
600% return on investments, pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad. So we showed them that's like, hey, look, we're making money. It's part of the economy. It's an important part of the economy. It's an important source for water. It's an important source for food safety. And oh, by the way, if we do all those things for the good of the citizens of Florida, the furry creatures can roam that. So we didn't lead with we led with the panther as far as like,
Smarts.
Are you going to let this go extinct? Can we do something about this? But that's not the science, and the data that we led with were the things that would make people make a difference and not tug on their heartstrings. But then we also tugged on their heartstrings with the panther and the and the Florida bear roams that area, and lots of other critters, right? So people love animals.
Yeah, they do.
They do.
Knowing what you know now, could you have done anything better in that whole process? Could that have been optimized a bit?
I got to tell you, we have had such home runs that I first of all, I didn't expect to have that success. So every step of the way, we've had greater success than we had planned for. So I can't think of what I could have done. I'm sure I could have, but I'm very, very happy, right? we are way exceeding expectations in everybody's category, in everybody's estimation as well. So I don't really know what I could do better. I think I could have leaned forward faster. I have put $32 million into this.
Jeez.
Now that I never planned on putting $32 million into this, but because it's paying such big dividends in the state that I felt, look, you were given a great windfall when you sold ConnectWise. And I never thought that money was for me, right? That's why I shared so much with employees. That's why we made 74 millionaires when we sold, because we shared the wealth with our colleagues. In fact, every colleague, not just the 74 millionaires, 74 of them had enough stock to make them millionaires. Every single colleague had stock, right? So it made a difference in their lives. But
Wonderful.
Just like... So I don't know where I was going with that.
I asked if you could have optimized, if you could have done anything better.
What I would have done is realized, look, you're going to spend $32 million on this. You can front load some of that spending and make things happen even faster.
I see.
And then there's certain, and then I also went on a rampage of, identifying non-government organizations, nonprofits that could have or should have made a difference in this whole effort. And, I learned a lot about nonprofits.
Right.
Okay. A lot of them are not very effective. So we put a lot of grant money out that didn't get much done. So I think I would do that differently. I think I know what to do and who to give the money to, and then how to give the money. so I can get greater return on my investment. So I think I could have, I could have saved money. I could have leaned forward. Those are some things that I could have done. But now, because we've had such success, I'm big time leaning forward. We just bought. So, okay, I've told you that we're going to the state level. We're going to the federal level. The other, you've got to go to all levels, right? And so one level that we need to go to is the private investors. And so we're proving that you can actually get a return on investment on open land in the state of Florida. And we're proving it with the properties that we're buying. So I have identified several very large properties in the wildlife corridor that we're going to get developed. And I said, they can't be. I can't let that get developed. So I am an unwittingly unwilling rancher now. Wow. Because I own 10 square miles of the state of Florida in the wildlife corridor on various ranches. And so on those ranches, though, we are proving that you can actually get about an 8 to 10% return on that land.
Really?
Yeah, think about it. It's like if you look at your stock portfolio over the last, say, 10 years, if you're getting 8% on an annual return basis, you're doing really good, really good.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Well, this is 8% that you can get, and it's backed by land, right? Wow. So what's the security for it? Well, it's land, okay? Right. You're investing in land. But if you optimize the use of that land, you can actually keep the land open, and you can create several revenue streams on that land that yield an 8 to 10% return on your investment. And so it's really the way I look at it, it's a whole new asset class that we could create. So we're proving it with the ranches that we've purchased and the work that we're doing on those ranches. And so that effort we call Wild Legacy, which is a new corporation that we just started. And we're proving that you can save the land with private investment. So yes, we need the state. Yes, we need the counties. Yes, we need the federal government. But we can also get money from private investors if we can prove on the lands that we've purchased that you can get an 8 to 10% return on that investment. And we are going to prove that. And by the way, our spreadsheets say we can get a lot more than that. Wow. Our pro formas say we can get like 20, 25%, but I can't even believe that, right? So I cut it in half and say, hey, if you can just do half of that, we could save so much of the wildlife corridor with private money. And then the last place that we're going, and McKinsey's number one recommendation to me after they did this study was, Arnie, you need to be the marketplace for carbon credits in the state of Florida. So carbon credits are there's little that's known about them by the general population, but what's interesting about carbon credits is it's free money. I say it's free money. Okay, let me explain. It's not a government entity. So you're not tapping the government's budget, okay? You're not tapping corporations' budget. You're tapping this sort of out there in the ether demand for carbon credits. Well, what creates the demand for carbon credits? Well, it's manufacturers who are polluting and they can't abate the pollution, so they're actually instead paying for someone else to abate that amount of pollution.
Interesting.
Right? And so there's a lot of cultural movements and all around the world and government requirements around the world, various governments around the world that require manufacturers and anyway, I'd say generally polluters to do something about their pollution and to reduce it. But you just can't reduce all the pollution in a manufacturing plant necessarily. So you buy the carbon credits, you buy for someone else to sequester the carbon that you're not sequestering, right? Or saving or not emitting, right? So I can't do anything about it, but I can pay these folks over here to keep that forest land as forest, and that forest is going to abate that amount of carbon that I'm putting into the atmosphere. So what happens is you have, think of it almost like a stock market where you've got supply and demand, right? Actually more like a commodities market. It is kind of a commodity in a way. It's like there's demand for these carbon credits, and I just explained where the demand comes from. There's not a great supply chain for it. So McKinsey said, look, Arnie, you need to go figure out every place that you can actually create carbon credits in the state of Florida, and then you need to go meet this unmet demand for carbon credits that's out here. There's billions and billions and billions of dollars looking for carbon credits out there, and there's not enough carbon credits available, so the demand exceeds the supply. right? So we just need more supply of carbon credits, and then all of a sudden that money in the ether comes down to the state.
Wow.
So we're doing, yeah, I'm doing a lot of things. So we're actually in the midst of doing carbon credit analysis on in the state to figure out what can be qualified as carbon credits. And what's interesting, and by the way, Pete Sorensen is, Pete.
Arlen's son, Pete.
Arlen's son, Pete, who works at ConnectWise.
Yes.
So Pete has done a project out there in Iowa, his homeland,
The farm.
to say, well, why can't, and this is interesting, why can't all the farmers that grow crops and corn, why can't they get carbon credit? Because they're sequestering, and that's just true. So the Corn Belt, here's an interesting fact. The Corn Belt of the United States of America sequesters more carbon than the Amazon rainforest.
Wow.
Who'd have thought that?
Wow.
Okay, so if you save part of the Amazon rainforest, you can get a carbon credit because it's sequestering carbon. Well, why aren't the farmers in Iowa and the Midwest, why aren't they getting carbon credits, right? So he's done some analysis on that. I'm going to be doing analysis on citrus. Okay, well, doesn't every orange sequester some carbon? Yes, it does, right? So I have a way I could measure that, right? Because the orange produce is measurable, right? Row crops produce is measurable. And you can actually then start tagging that to carbon credits. So, we're interested in finding all the ways that we can apply carbon credits to what is available here in the state of Florida. And we're doing scientific research to figure out what the best carbon sequestering features of the state are. It turns out, by the way, that muck, peat or bog, swamps, are a great sequestering of carbon, right? So it's like if we save swampland, this is so funny, right? Because this is the 1940s joke. It's like, hey, I got swampland in Florida. It's like, well, guess what? That swampland's going to get carbon credits now. So if you were so unfortunate to buy swampland in the state of Florida, I can get you money for it now. So, yeah, interesting. So, and again, this is all just a modern technological approach to how do you balance economy and ecology? And what's interesting about carbon credits is that's the world's answer for at least the beginnings of how does the world balance economy and ecology, right? Because that's exactly what that's doing right there. But it's not just about carbon, it's about methane, it's about all kinds of other emissions that you can sequester. So the carbon credit industry is evolving to be even more mature. So we're staying on top of that. We're thinking that's another source of revenue. So we're proving it with our private investments that you can make an 8% return and leave the property open. So we're going to be then, once we have success there, we will actually open that up as if it's like a mutual fund, really. We'll have probably 20 square miles of the state of Florida under ranch land, under management, that's actually yielding an 8% return on investment. Then we're going to start selling that to private investors. So as an asset, it's a whole new asset class. Think about it. Do you want your money in stock? Do you want your money in bonds? Do you want your money in land? Do you want your money in real estate? Do you want to own that real estate and rent it out? Or do you want to put it in our fund where you don't have to do anything? Okay, you're going to get an 8% return on your investment, and you're going to be doing the world a favor because that investment that you made sequesters carbon. Okay, it leaves the land open. It keeps intact the Florida Wildlife Corridor. So we got a lot of great reasons why you would want to make that investment, and why wouldn't you if you're getting an 8% return on your money?
Isn't it responsible of every citizen to help our ecology, to help our planet, to help our state, our country?
I don't think so. I think it's the responsibility of everyone to care about it, because there's only so many people that can do something about it, right? We can't all do something about it, right? I've been put in a position where I've been given the resources where I can do something about it, so I feel obligated to do something about that. And if you have the resources to do something about a problem, and you're passionate about solving that problem, I think that's what you should be doing. And yeah, I think everyone should care and be educated about what we're doing here in the state of Florida. And I think it's very interesting because if we figure out the blueprint here in Florida, like I said, we export that to the other states, and that's going to go internationally, we believe, right? We are also getting calls from other nations and other folks from around the world saying, "What the heck are you doing down there?" You know, you got $3 billion from this. What are you doing down there, right? So,
you created a template, Arnie.
yes, that's what we're doing. Yeah. I've told our team so many times they've gotten opportunities to go outside of the state. I've said, no. We figure out Florida.
Right.
And then we blueprint it, and then we share the blueprint. That's what we do. That's our best and highest leverage point, how we can make the biggest difference. But we're making a huge difference in the state of Florida, huge difference.
Your 3 pillars in Bellini Capital are conservation, education, and cyber. Now we go back to technology. What is it about cyber, those digital borders, that excites you?
Well, scares me, I'd say. What scares me about it, I get excited about it, but I'm mostly scared about it. So, you know, thank God we finally closed our physical borders. And I can't believe anyone would be upset about that. They shouldn't be, okay? It's great that we actually have a sovereign nation where you're not supposed to be here, you're not gonna be here, okay? It's just that simple. You know, our economy cannot handle anything but that. Okay, and as the greatest nation state in the world, we should be picky about who we let in. And those people should contribute greatly to our economy. I believe we should be letting a lot more Indian nationals over here. They're very smart. They're running all of our high-tech companies anyway. Go look out in Silicon Valley. You know, you got an Indian CEO. It's like we need to open the floodgates for talent that can bolster our economy, not people who will tax our economy, right? So it's as simple as that, right? So I made my political statement there.
Yes.
I think it's pretty logical. But here's what I get concerned about. Physical borders are shut. Digital borders are wide open. And every nanosecond of every day, those who seek to do us harm are trespassing. They're invading our digital borders. They're coming right through. They're planting Trojan horses in water supplies, electric grids, and they're going to trigger those when they want to or need to. So example, you know, Chinese Communist Party, bunch of liars, cheaters, and stealers. Okay, they steal intellectual property. They lie about what they will or will not do. You can't keep them to any, like this is going to be the interesting thing with the tariff agreement with China. It's like, no way will China ever agree to open up their economy. They can't, because it's all, for the most part, it's so much of their economy is state-owned enterprises that are not competitive. And if they let the American companies come in, we'll outcompete them. Okay, so they can't do that because the whole government will fall because they're all state-owned agencies. So the government, CCP, only cares about keeping themselves in power. They do not care about helping benefiting their citizens. They only care about staying in power. So I want to make a distinction. I do not like the Chinese Communist Party. I love the Chinese people. Very smart, very talented. There's huge disservice that their government's doing to them. They need to overthrow their government. It's that simple. And it will happen, and it probably will happen sometime in the near future because their economy is tumbling, because the central planned economy just does not work. You have to have capitalism. You have to promote innovation. You have to reward innovation. You have to reward entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, that was done in China 20 years ago, and they still are benefiting from it. But now you see that the change that they've made in their security posture and the way that they've funded money and cut back on their technology companies, they've put going too far, but they've put, a member of the Communist Party is a member of the board of every single tech company.
Wow.
So, if you have an authoritarian government, you got a problem right there, because it's only going to last for maybe 75, 80 years at the most. I mean, that's all that the Soviet Union lasted, and looks like that's about all China's going to end up getting out of it as well. I think they just celebrated their 75th year. I don't think they'll ever celebrate their 80th year.
Wow.
Okay. But the new game in town is they are overrunning our digital borders. We have found 10 contracts that the Chinese Communist Party has put out to private tech firms in China. It's a professional service agreement, Joe.
Wow.
It says, here's the deliverables, and here's the milestones that you've got to reach, and then here's what we'll pay you. And and what are these milestones? You got to crack into this electric grid. You got to crack into this water supply. You got to crack into this bank. You got to create, psychological distress on social media. So it's like, these are the deliverables,
wow,
right? Signed by the Chinese Communist government, wow, if you will. And so, there's plenty of, just like any professional service company, I can build a whole business around that if there's enough enough revenue coming my way. And in China, there's tons of revenue, that there's tons of money that the Communist Party is putting into funding the private hacking of the United States of America through their private firms. And this also gives them plausible deniability. It's like, oh, it was those guys. It wasn't us. It was they did it, right? So if they're ever caught, it's hard to catch someone in cybercrime, cyber theft, because you can pretty much be anonymous.
Right.
So anyway, that's a long-winded version to say the problem's getting worse, right? Russia is the original gangster of cyber war and cyber espionage. They perfected it during the Cold War, right? So did we, by the way, just to be clear. Just to be clear, it's like they're all wannabes and we're the best at it in the United States of America, right? So we're way better than anyone else. The only one that even compares to us in cyber capabilities is Israel. And by the way, the reason the 12-day war was only 12 days was because of all the cyber work that was done in advance. Like years of cyber work was done in advance to prepare for the war and make it just a real quick hit 12-day war. It's a reason that the upper end of the Iranian regime was taken out like almost day one. Well, that was because the Israeli cyber team had already broken into their cyber world and set up a fake meeting for them all to attend at a specific location that was targeted and bombed. So they didn't even know why they thought they were going there for a meeting. They were going there to die, okay? That was all done with cyber. So when you start thinking about like, oh, yeah, okay. And then you look at like, they hit the 4th floor east-west corner of an apartment building to kill one of these people, right? It's like they knew exactly where to go. That's all cyber work on the front end, right? To be very targeted so that you can do massive damage in a 12-day war, right? It's like it was over and we completely dismantled the Iranian regime. Now, we let them come back, but we completely dismantled everything that they had going, right? They're starting from scratch now, not just nuclear, but like almost everything. So all of that was prepped with cyber espionage and cyber infiltration in advance. And so what's really interesting when I bring that example up, that's why it's such an important issue here in the United States of America. Don't think for one second that Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran haven't infiltrated our infrastructure, haven't planted things. They know things that we don't know that they know. They have planted Trojan horses in places that we don't know, okay? And let's face it, okay? Most of our technology that is vulnerable these days, well, I mean, just this weekend, SharePoint was hacked. SharePoint.
I know, Microsoft.
We're talking Microsoft, okay? If they can't make their software bulletproof, nobody can, right? So the point is that we're very vulnerable. And then also think about like all of the infrastructure that we've built, digital infrastructure. So I've made my career started at Pricewaterhouse in 1981. And the first client that I went to was an insurance company. And it was a company that owned their own building. It was 10 stories. 4 floors of that building were file cabinets of paper. Their clients, claims, all of that, right? All filed in paper cash. So, you know, what was the mantra since 1981 on was like, we got to digitize everything, right? We can access it quicker, better, faster. We can get rid of these 4 floors of filing cabinets and, you know, reclaim that space and so, you know, we digitized everything and successfully have done so over the last 40 years. So congratulations, everything's digitized. All of our knowledge, all of our books, all of our music, all of our transactions, all of our everything is now digital. Yes. And so we've created this new pot of gold. It's digital gold. If you can crack into that, you can make money, right? That's what hackers have proven. And now let's look at, okay, how successful have they been? Well, pretty darn successful. They're the 3rd largest economy. It's an $8 trillion economy. Cybercrime is an $8 trillion economy. United States is the #1 economy in the world at $30 trillion. China's just behind us, well, a ways behind us at $19 trillion, which is not an accurate number. It's more like $15 trillion, okay? They're about half the size of us, if they're being honest, but they're not.
Right.
The government is not, as I've said. And then comes cybercrime. at 8 trillion. Then comes Japan, Germany, France, Italy, you know, all the other. So they're right up there. So they're not doing anything good with the $8 trillion, okay? They're not building parks or schools.
No.
I can promise you that. Okay, so they're not doing anything good with the $8 trillion. It's a huge economy. It's bringing more attention into that. So like what happens when you have a robust economy? It's like more people come into that economy. So you've got more and more people coming into to do cyber crime. You have nation states that are now hiring those companies and saying, hey, I got a project for you. Here's a professional service contract, right? And now, you know, so 40 years we've digitized everything. We didn't think very much about how we were going to secure what we digitized, right? So what we thought about is like digitize. Great, we did that, but we didn't think about securing what we digitized. And so we're Swiss cheese. Like there's all kinds of holes. There's all kinds of ways to get in. I mean, the Windows operating system is not very secure. It was built on top of DOS. I think they just recently or are soon going to be able to get rid of the underpinnings of DOS. Disk operating system is the basis for almost all the compute power that's in the world today, right? They're getting rid of that. They're going to make it more secure. But the point is what are all the legacy systems that have been built on a foundation, not just DOS, but every base operating system has had opportunity for infiltration. So if I build something on top of an unstable foundation, well, then doesn't matter how secure I build on top of that, I can always come in at the foundation level and infiltrate. And that's what we're seeing, right? So great, we digitized everything. Now after the fact, we have to come back and secure everything. That's what gets me, that's what keeps me up at night about cybersecurity, right? Because like our whole world runs on the digital architecture that we've put out there, right? And it's all insecure. So what are you going to do about that? You got to get busy on cybersecurity. And I look at our industry specifically, you know, and specifically I look at all industries, but specifically managed service providers. They're not moving fast enough. In fact, a lot of them are just not moving at all. So they're doing half of the world, right? So if I'm a managed service provider, I'm doing IT operations. Great. I'm managing your IT operations for a monthly fee. That's great, okay? But that's only half of the equation. The other half of the equation is security operations, okay? That completes the picture. But if I'm only doing IT operations and I'm not adding security operations, then I'm only doing half the job. I'm also leaving half the revenue on the table, okay, which is the big incentive for managed service providers, okay? But here's the other thing. If I'm doing IT operations, my competition is now doing security operations and IT operations. They're going to take that client away from me, right? So, and then here's the other thing. If you're only doing IT operations and you're not doing security operations, you have all the liability for doing IT operations, but you haven't provided security operations. When that client is hacked, you are going to get sued.
Wow.
I can promise you. We had a client in town here, one of our greatest clients, Cohen & Grieb, our own CPA firm. We were doing IT operations, right? Because, I mean, I am a managed service provider. I still am, right? It's like, there they are right there. You can go talk to them, okay? Anyway, Cohen & Grieb called us up. They got hacked. They stole all the social security numbers of all the tax returns.
Oh my God.
Okay. Tax returns were stolen, right? And like they were worried like all these tax returns are going to be filed by someone other than the actual client, right? And someone's going to get their refund, right? So we were in a big mess there. They called us up and they said, hey, Arnie, we got hacked, and it's your fault. And I said, whoa. I said, I'm doing IT operations for you, Cohen & Grieb. I'm not doing security operations. Now, I've asked you to do security operations. You've told me no. Well, I didn't get him to sign anything saying that I'm not doing it. I didn't get him to sign anything saying that I'm not doing security operations. They said, Arnie, you did IT operations. You put in the firewall, didn't you? Yeah. You put in the two-factor authentication, didn't you? Well, yeah, I did. You put in the antivirus, didn't you? It's like, well, yeah, I did. Well, then we should be protected. It's like, well, no. You see, that's just some of it. It's like you got to do this other side here, right? that argument fell on deaf ears.
Wow.
We ended up obviously working. We're going to work with our client. We worked with them, but we had to accept the responsibility for it, and we had to mitigate, and we had to pay money.
Wow.
Because we were liable, and we didn't think we were. And I think that's really, I think every managed service provider is in the same situation that we were with our client, Cohen and Grieve. So I will say that companies like my son's company, Connect Secure, they're on a mission. And I need more cybersecurity companies to be on a mission. All of our investments in cybersecurity are on a mission to, number one, provide a very, very comprehensive product, okay? But it has to also be affordable, okay? When I go and I ask managed service providers, why aren't you doing the other half of the world? Why aren't you doing security operations? You know what they tell me? They tell me I can't find professionals that understand it. I can't upskill my people, and I can't afford the cybersecurity tool set because it's so expensive. And there's like 20 other products that I got to put together over here in order to do security operations. And it's too expensive. They just priced me out of the market. I can't afford to do it. And I don't even know how to do it. And I don't have a professional to do it. So and that has not changed for the last, well, that has never changed. That was the situation 5 years ago. That was the situation 10 years ago. It's still a situation today. So people have to be willing to provide comprehensive cybersecurity solutions at an affordable price, okay? And that's what companies like Connect Secure are doing. Compliance Risk is another one, or Compliance Scorecard is another one that we've invested in. We're investing in a company called SkillBit, and they are all about training professionals. And so we're creating an AI-based learning system that is based on the NICE framework. And if you're familiar with the NICE framework, it identifies all the skills that you need to have to be a cybersecurity professional. And there's about 1,000 different skill sets, okay? We are literally taking those 1,000 skill sets and we're creating curriculum around it, and then we're creating challenges. So imagine you learn the skill, one of the 1,000, and then we say, okay, we're going to test you on the knowledge of your content. How much did you learn from the 5 pages of information we gave you on this? Okay, great, you passed that. But now here's hands-on experience. We just taught you basic network architecture. Now I want you to actually go over here and show me that you learned that. You can create a basic network over here, right? Show me you can do that, right? So what we're doing is we're combining the traditional education with content with actual hands-on experience, and it's all in a learning management system that's guided by AI, right? So every individual learner can go at their own pace. So we feel like we will be able to we hope the goal is to be able to eliminate the gap of talent, this talent shortage. And right now the FBI says there's 700,000 cybersecurity jobs in the United States that are not being filled because there's not enough professionals. So we've got to get really serious about building that labor force. The White House, Trump's administration recognizes this. They're actually very much, all the other things they're doing, they actually have made really good decisions on what to do in the world of cyber and AI. And those rulings came out and executive orders came out in June and July now. And so we're analyzing all of that. I love what I see there. It's very smart. It's all about AI first and really putting standards in place for cybersecurity. Anyway, the point is the government's finally turning their attention to it. But the private industry has to come to the rescue with the solutions, the tools, and affordable pricing. We are doing all that we can to create professionals. I've got 3,000 students at the new Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity at University of South Florida. So, but that's just going to be a drop in the bucket, right? So, but the learning management system that will guide these students, and by the way, we have our learning management system being put in at USF and St. Leo University here in the Tampa Bay area. Awesome. And those will be our proof cases. And then we'll, if it's successful, we'll roll that thing out, nationwide to state school systems. And so, and think about it, it's like there's a demand for cybersecurity professionals, a huge demand that's going unfulfilled. These are opening job, minimum $60,000. I can take someone, and by the way, I can take a student and I can give them a career in cybersecurity making $60,000 to $120,000 the day they graduate.
Wow.
Okay, but I can also use that same curriculum to take stay-at-home moms and upskill them to become cybersecurity professionals working from home.
Wow.
Okay, remotely, and earning $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year, right? So I can do the same with truck drivers who are saying, hey, I'm tired of these long haul runs. I want to spend more time with my family. I can do the same thing with retired military professionals, right? So the opportunity to create amazing jobs and to upskill our current U.S. citizens is pretty amazing. So, and no one's doing it. No one's doing this, right? So again, I zoom out and I'm going, okay, what's the problem? We don't have enough professionals. Well, why don't we have enough professionals? Well, the education's too expensive. Well, you know what? You can fix that, okay? So we're taking a novel approach. I don't think it's novel. I think it's very obvious that you should take this approach, but nobody's doing it. So I look for the things that are problems that keep me up at night, like cybersecurity, and say, okay, dare to actually be the David that slays Goliath on this, okay? You have, I feel like, you don't really have a chance of doing this, Arnie. But it's like, no. And it's just for a second, entertain the thought of what would you do if you were to take on this big, huge task. And so if you were to take on Goliath, how would you approach this, So I always find a rock and I always find a sling somehow to slay the next Goliath, if you will. But then I never get tired of taking on these big challenges, right? But so, we've talked about the environment in the state of Florida. Like, well, no one zoomed out and said there should be a green infrastructure plan. There should be this concept of balancing economy and ecology. So I've got that going, okay? Wow. Nobody's bothered to say, well, why are we missing so many cybersecurity professionals? Why don't MSPs have a readily supply of cyber techs that they could hire? It's like, well, we're not producing them. It's too expensive, okay? But creates jobs. And good paying jobs. And again, I come back to the 70,000 jobs I promised to Tampa Bay, right? I mean, this new Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity at University of South Florida is my ace in the hole to do that.
That's awesome.
So we're literally creating internships for all of those students. They're going to be required to do an internship with a local cybersecurity company, okay? So, and what happens with the internships is 9 times out of 10, the company that they intern with hires them, right? So a lot of the talent that we have in University of South Florida, they come from the north, they get educated here, they enjoy Florida for a couple of years, and then they go somewhere else. It's like, well, we're going to keep them right here in Tampa Bay, which brings me to my next big Goliath that I'm trying to take care of, which is Cyber Bay. So Tampa Bay is, I missed that. Okay, so Cyber Bay is Tampa Bay. So just like there's a 10-county area that's known as Silicon Valley out in California, there's a 5-county area here that I've identified that does a ton of cybersecurity work. So, and it comes in the form of military, education, tech innovation. And so what we have here is we have MacDill Air Force Base, which is Central Command for the United States of America. And if you remember, the general in charge of the 12-day war, when he was asked, hey, who knew about these B-2 bombers going over to Iran? He said, well, our team did, and then a few people in Tampa is what he said. Well, those few people in Tampa are Central Command, right? Well, we have Central Command here. We have actually, it would have been Special Operations Command. We have Central Command for the United States of America. If the United States of America is attacked, planning happens right here.
Wow.
We also have Special Operations Command, okay, for a region of the world. We do Special Operations Command, the most important region of the world, by the way, that includes China, okay, and North Korea, okay, so and Russia. So Special Operations Command is run out of here. Well, between those two organizations, there's probably 3,000 cyber professionals. So we've already got this huge talent pool of cyber that's already existing in the Tampa Bay area. And as they retire or leave the military, they're taking jobs with cyber companies in the Tampa Bay area, right? So we have many large mature cybersecurity companies, right? So I'm happy to say that ConnectWise was the first unicorn, but I'm much happier to say that we are not even close to the last. So there's now KnowBe4, which is based in Clearwater. They're worth, their estimated valuation is $5 billion now. And what do? They educate your employees on cybersecurity and cybersecurity awareness. We have Align, which is a company that does compliance. It's all focused on compliance. Great company there. And they just got valued at over $1 billion.
Wow.
We have ReliaQuest. You may have heard of the ReliaQuest Bowl. Okay, ReliaQuest is valued at, they're great because they not only have a ton of cybersecurity professionals, but they're focused on AI-driven cybersecurity, and they're making great inroads there. They're valued at $3.4 billion. We have ThreatLocker that's valued at $1.5 billion. And even startups like my son's company, Connect Secure, they're already valued at $90 million, right? And they've only been around for like 3 years. So really great opportunity for growing your company here in the Tampa Bay area if it's cybersecurity focused. And I'm just scratching the surface. There's probably 10 others that I could name. Rapid7 is another one in the Tampa Bay area.
Sure.
So I mean, we got a ton of them, right?
CyberFox.
So CyberFox, right? And a ton of startups too.
Yes.
So lots and lots of opportunity. You got the talent base here. And as I said, we now have the investment community completely focused here, which is why we have more unicorns, right? ConnectWise was the first, but now we got all of these other ones, which is great. You know, they're not having trouble getting investment. People understand there's a lot happening here in the Tampa Bay area. But the piece that we were missing was the academic side, right? The academia, right? We were missing our version of Stanford, right? So now that they have the Bellini College, we've got academia. So we have the military, we have private innovation, private industry with the large companies. We have a bunch of startup companies. We have the talent pool. We have the investors focused on us and providing funding for all of this. And now we have our version of Stanford. We have the Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity that's pumping cyber professionals out to all of these companies in the Tampa Bay area, interning with them so they get the first look at this talent base. We're doing research for them. So they've got, I'm going to these, I'm doing a round robin of all of these companies saying, do you need research done? Do you want us to do that out here at the University of South Florida, right? So the research can be done there as well. So it's a great opportunity. So now we've got the academic, military, business community all focused on it. And I've gone to several of the mayors in the area. They all love the idea. So now... So here's another crazy idea that I'm doing. So now I'm actually going to the state level and I'm asking the state, again, just like the wildlife corridor, I'm going, hey, I need a legal entity name. I don't want any money. I just want a legal entity name. I want Cyber Bay to be recognized as a private economic opportunity zone that is this 5-county area that surrounds Tampa, right? So it's Hillsborough County, it's Pasco County, it's Manatee and Sarasota County, and Polk County and Pinellas County. So that's the region. So that's where all these companies exist. And so I'm asking for them to just give me a label, just give me a proper noun, Cyber Bay, right? And then we've got our first Cyber Bay 2025 conference that is in October 13th, 14th, and 15th, where we happen to have the general in charge of central operations for the United States of America speaking. We happen to have the general in charge of special operations for the United States of America speaking. We happen to have the just retired head of National Security Association, NSA, speaking, Jen Easterly. As well as a number of other really high-level cybersecurity professionals. And just for fun, we've got John Cena, the famous wrestler, as our celebrity persona, right? Because what is cybersecurity? It's always good versus bad. It's good guy versus bad guy, right? It's a wrestling match. It's a never-ending wrestling match. It's Wile E. Coyote versus Roadrunner, right? It's always, can I trick you? Can I defend? Can I offend? And it's always back and forth and back, and it will never end. So it is like a never-ending tag team wrestling match, if you will. So we got John Cena, who's going to be our celebrity persona for this, and we'll be doing a billboard campaign around the Tampa Bay area with his image, I hope with his image on it. And so, so we've got a lot of cool things going. So I'm really recreating what I did at ConnectWise, which is IT Nation. Another missing component from an ecosystem is to band the community together so they understand they are a community of like-minded people on the same mission and that they can help each other along that mission path. In fact, if they get together, and when they do get together in October, we're going to show them they've got a greater mission than they ever thought, right? Because nobody's jumping to really solve this problem of the national digital defense. But we are going to be addressing that. We're also going to be addressing why is cybersecurity, what do we need to do to make cybersecurity ubiquitous? Okay, it should be everywhere. What does that take, right? So, so bringing all of those constituents together in one place, saying we all can share in this mission, we all have a part to play in this mission, and we all need to recognize that we're all right here, right here with each other. We should band together as a community on this mission to make cybersecurity ubiquitous, to defend the digital borders of the United States of America. And if we do that well, we can export that to other democracies around the world. Because the new game, and the game that is forevermore going to be existent in your lifetime, in your children's lifetime, in their children's, and posterity, will be autocracies versus democracies. That's the new game, right? And you see it when you see Iran and North Korea and China and Russia banding together. Let's see, they're all, in reality, they're all autocracies, right? I mean, Putin's not a democracy. That's an autocracy, right? So what happens when you're an autocracy? Well, you want to beat whoever's your biggest challenger. It's like, so that's the United States of America. That's the West, right? So they're never going to be done trying to disrupt and overtake the West, right? Well, what's the West? It's democracies, okay? So this is autocracy versus democracy. It's never going to end, okay? It is World War III. It is a digital war. And the digital war is way more effective than a kinetic war, right? Physical war, you got to roll tanks. That's expensive. You got to create nuclear bombs, for deterrence. It's way less expensive for me to go find a hole in your digital architecture and come on in and see what I can do. And by the way, got bad news for China. Their entire financial system runs on Oracle.
Does it really?
Okay. And now, brilliant move by the White House by allowing the H20 NVIDIA chip to go to China. They'll always be dependent and using our chipset, but more importantly, they'll be using the NVIDIA CUDA platform, right? That's the real secret sauce here. It's like, is their operating system and their platform and the extensive developer support that they have and the API set that they have that everyone contributes to, right? So that CUDA platform that NVIDIA has is the stickiness. And this is the reason why China's all upset that they can't get the NVIDIA chips, because there's no good alternative. You can get artificial intelligence chips, but if you don't have the CUDA platform to run them on, it's not going to do you nearly. It's a huge switching cost over. They'll never be able to do it, right, if they want to advance in AI. So, look, what I would say is if the Chinese Communist Party ever wants to launch ships to try and overtake Taiwan, good luck. We'll shut off your financial system. We'll shut off your AI. You're not going to be able to do anything. It's like, believe me, I believe we have a few Trojan horses planted here and there, right? So it's like, you can stop a war from starting. That's the new game. Can you stop aggression before it starts? That's the new game, and it's a digital game, right? So think about that for a second. So if we dominate cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, then we dominate that game. And that game is that game is the only game that we have a chance of creating peace with that game, okay? You see President Trump masterfully using tariffs to bring peace. Like, who would have thought that? Well, there's another game too, which is, you're advanced, and he's doing that too, which I think is a smart move. By the way, I think the reason that Trump has been so effective so far is because he's a business person.
Right.
He's a very astute business person. We're always putting lawyers in the White House. We don't need any more laws. We got plenty of laws, okay? We need business acumen in the White House. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican. It's like, please, put up some savvy business person as your candidate, okay? Because that's what we need as a nation, okay? We don't need any more politicians. We don't need any more lawmakers. We got plenty of laws. We need business acumen. That's all he's doing, is applying that, and negotiation strength, right? So who would have thought that you could use tariffs to create peace between India and Pakistan and Rwanda and Congo. It's like, who would have thought that you could do that? It's like, well, money talks, you know?
Sure does. Well, when Cyber Bay is going to be great, I'm going to be there. I think it's going to be an incredible event. I'm really looking forward to that. Arnie, do you ever take a moment to kind of reflect? You started ConnectWise. You made all these millionaires. You created, IT Nation created the MSP environment, the industry. I mean, when you reflect on these things, what do you think about? What comes to mind?
Well, I don't take credit for any of that, just so you know. I feel like I was maybe a catalyst for it, right? Well, maybe we did start the MSP world because the story on that is a funny one because I was a very reluctant managed service provider and the very first one in the nation, I believe, because so I told you that I took a job with Price Waterhouse in 1981. Well, I left in 1982.
Right, a year.
The reason I left is because in 81, the PC hit the market and I convinced my partner in charge at Price Waterhouse to let me implement microcomputer systems in our small business clients. And so we did that. We implemented it in about 6 different clients. We put in networks, right? We put in PCs, networks, and software, right? Accounting software primarily. It was all version 1. Version 1 of the PC, version 1 of the network networks, version 1 of the accounting software. Is version 1 of everything, and so it didn't work, right? In fact, networks I referred to as not works until 1985, okay? They just didn't work, and they didn't work reliably enough for a business to run on them. They were not works until 1985, and when Novell finally came out with their 3.6 operating system, it finally was, hey, this stuff is solid, it works, right? So, you remember that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was a real milestone, right? So I'm telling you this because... I don't know why I'm telling you this.
MSP, you reflect on ConnectWise.
So I convinced the partners in charge to let us do 6 clients. Well, nothing worked. Okay, and so they turned to me and they said, Arnie, we're going to have to get rid of all these clients that you brought in. It's like nothing's working and they're all irritated with us. In fact, they're talking about suing us because this stuff doesn't work and you told them to buy it. And oh, by the way, you said that you could charge out at $120 an hour, the same rate you were charging out at with mainframe work that you were doing previously, but they're not paying their bills. They're refusing to pay. And they're not willing to pay $120 an hour. We're lucky if we can get 50. So anyway, it was just too early to work, right? And so they gave me a choice. They said, well, we're going to fire all these clients. And I said, well, okay, but I believe in the future of what I'm doing here. So I said, how about I leave? But I'll take those clients with me and I'll take them off your hands, okay? And they said, fine, you can do that. We don't want you to leave, but if you insist that this is your future, then you have to take them all. We don't want any of the liability. And not only that, Arnie, because this is such crap, we're gonna give you a number for each one of those clients, each one of the 6. And that is your maintenance number, and anything that breaks for them, anything that breaks, you got to fix it. And they gave me crazy numbers. Like I had a 5-node network that they said $800 a year. And I thought, I'm going to lose my butt on this, right? So David, my brother, and I, put together the numbers. I think the total between the 6 clients was $5,000 a year, right? Spread across 6 clients, right? And we had to take care of anything that went wrong. Well, after the first year, I wasn't even thinking about it. And then after the first year, David did the math and he goes, hey, Arnie, we actually made money on those contracts. And so that was the birth of managed services. We said, well, wait a minute. It's year 2. We can raise the price, okay? And we can be more, we can actually start selling this to other clients, because at that time we didn't just have those 6. We ended up bringing in new clients. We started selling them the same contract. We called it business system support, but it was managed services. And so it was what we would sell them, and we took it from, an annual fee to a monthly fee. And all of a sudden we were making money, but we were making money on a monthly basis. And very quickly we had sold enough of it where it was covering all of our cost. So any computers that we sold, any time and material work that we did, any project work that we did, that was all going directly to the bottom line, because managed services was covering all of our costs for the month. So we were saying, this is fantastic, right? So then we started telling other friends about it. But then we realized we didn't have any system to run that. So we had to start creating software that would help us run this brand new business concept That's what started ConnectWise,
Right.
was because we needed to have some way of running our business, which was growing really fast, was based on a reoccurring revenue model, as well as project and time and material. We did all of it, but our real success factor was we were creating wealth because we had reoccurring revenue, which we knew translated to greater valuation in the company that we created. So once we figured out how to do that and started creating the software suite to deliver that, we started sharing it with friends around the country that were in the same, we were in a group called US Connect. You may remember them, I don't know, but you had to be a Novell Platinum dealer to join US Connect. You had to be invited in. There were only about 20 of us around the nation, but what we did is we were the first group that said, hey, we're at a certain level of skill and authorization, and we will actually do national work for you. We had affiliates in enough of the geographic major metropolitan areas that we could start doing national work. And so that was the reason that we banded together. But we shared our managed service blueprint with all of those companies, and they started making all kinds of money from it. And then it just turned out, it's like they said, hey, well, you got to sell us your software. And it's like, I don't want to sell you my software. It's like, it's just really our stuff. I don't want to have to, But, it was the classic backyard barbecue sauce story. It's like we made some barbecue sauce that everyone liked, and then they made us sell it to them, right? So I was like, okay, fine. So we started selling it, and that was really an accident, right? ConnectWise started as a complete accident, or you could say a necessity, right? Because I was spending, $500,000 a year developing the product, and I thought, well, okay, my buddies at US Connect, my friends around the country, I don't have to worry about them competing with me. So yeah, I can sell the software to them, I suppose. And they'll help fund the effort that we're putting in here. So nice. I looked at it as a cooperative, and I told them that. I said, fine, let's just all share the cost. I'll do the work, but I need you to pay for it because we're all going to share the cost of building this platform. And one thing led to another, and we ended up very quickly going international with the product as well.
Amazing.
So yeah, it was never in the plans. It just happened. And almost everything that I've done has been that way, where I'm just looking at a problem and I'm trying to address the problem. It turns out there's actually money to be made when you solve a problem, right? I think that's a great lesson for most people is find a big problem that you're passionate about solving. If you solve that, people are going to love you for it, but they're also going to pay you for that.
Right.
And if you do your job well, you'll make money off of that. So I was never trying. I would have never imagined a $1.5 billion exit from ConnectWise. That was never in the plan, never my thought. I was just trying to solve a problem, and I realized that, man, I'm solving this problem for an entire industry. This is really pretty cool. And I just thought, and by the way, the reason that I left Pricewaterhouse wasn't just because I wanted to take care of those 6 clients, was because I saw that the future of technology was going to be the miniaturization of technology, right? To the point where you'd be holding a supercomputer in your hand, right. Which, by the way, that is, your iPhone is much more powerful than the Cray supercomputer of 1996.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So you can't even compare the two. So it's like, we have been able to do that. It is the future. I was right about it. And by the way, I told you my dad was branch manager for IBM. When I told him in 1982 that I was quitting Pricewaterhouse, he wasn't happy.
Really?
He was not happy. He said, Arnie, well, actually he said Arnie Barney, which meant I was in trouble. Anytime it was Arnie Barney, I was in trouble. Arnie Barney, you don't understand. It's like, you shouldn't quit Pricewaterhouse. You'll make partner in 12 years, which I'm thinking, 12 years, that's a long time. He said, you're on a fast track to make partner. It's like, yeah, it's going to be 12 years. He said, you don't get it. It was like, we made the PC as an answer to this company in Cupertino, California, Apple.
Yeah.
They'd created a personal computer, and we're IBM. We're the big dog. We had to respond. We have to have something in that category. So we made the PC. We're going to sell 5,000 of these globally, Arnie, to hobbyists. Wow. Okay. The money's in the big iron. Wow. And I didn't believe that, right? And I said, I understand what you're saying, Pa, but I'm going to go this way. And I could be making a mistake, but I'm still going to go this way. He blessed it, right? And he helped us, but he didn't want me to just do it without thinking it through. And he did come back later and say, I can see why IBM lost that entire PC industry. They all thought like I did. It's like it's all about the big iron. This is a toy. It's a toy,
Amazing.
right? So that was how IBM. I have a very firsthand experience of how IBM missed their greatest opportunity. I saw it in my own father, an executive of IBM. Thankfully, I was given permission, if you will, from him to pursue my dream. That's awesome. The dream came true. Personal computers are everywhere, and technology is everywhere. But now we've created new problems, right? So now we've got a lot of new problems associated with that. And by the way, I can go there, but I mean, the reality is the problems are getting ready to go exponential. So just like we breakneck speed, we digitized everything over a 40-year period, okay? Well, guess what we're doing now? And by the way, there's 85 billion devices connected to the internet globally. 85 billion, okay? That's a lot, okay? Yes. We are getting ready to add artificial intelligence to all of them. So that just takes the attack surface and it exponentially blows that out. So you think we had a problem with cybersecurity before? The problem just got way worse as we embed AI in the 85 billion connected devices on the internet today. So the problem's not going away. No. The problem's always going to be, and it's always going to be nation states who seek to upheaval, number one. Whoever's number two is always going to try and upset number one, right? So it's like you got China always trying to upset us. That's never going to end. You got, autocracy versus democracy. You have all kinds of new attack vectors that you can go at with AI. So the world that we've entered into now is really, really interesting.
Yes.
And it's fraught with problems. It's fraught with opportunity. And it's if you're bold and you want to zoom out and look at some of these big problems and try and address them like I am, I don't know. You'll either fall on your face or you'll end up having a great success. So lots of Goliaths out there to be slain.
Radically different from 1982. Now, around that time, is that when Bill Gates said a PC in every home? Or was that a little bit later? Do you remember? Remember when he made that kind of goal? And everybody's like, how's that going to happen? I think it was like mid-'80s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he was right, too. Yeah. So, I mean, I think probably one of the greatest books that is still valid today, a great read, is Business at the Speed of Thought. It was his book.
That's right.
So Gates' book laid out what he saw as the future. And what he saw as the future has come to pass. So almost exactly as he saw it. So, I mean, if you remember at the time, the big question, the browser had just come out and everyone said, well, that's it. The browser's going to take over everything. It's like, not so fast, okay? It's going to require, a client-server architecture. It's going to require cloud-based computing. He foresaw all of that, right, which was interesting. But he always said you're going to have a decent amount of compute power right there in your hand or on your desktop to actually to complement the central processing power. Because at the time, the big theory, if you remember, mainframes were all about central processing power and terminals, right? Yeah. So we were still moving from that paradigm of should it be centralized or should it be decentralized? And then we went from completely centralized to, individual PCs, which is not connected together, which is 100% decentralization, but you got the disadvantage of the fact that they are decentralized and they don't communicate with each other. So that was really the problem that I was trying to solve with the first 6 clients at Price Waterhouse. Is wait a minute, we can put the PCs out there, but we can connect them together in a network so there's centralization and decentralization now. So it's always going to be that interesting combination of the two that we're going to be playing off of for the rest of our lives, right? Well, forever. It's just the right combination.
But the move, Arnie, to make IT Nation and to make a community. I became a partner of ConnectWise in 2007 with my MSP, but it wasn't just the great PSA and the software. It was the community. I would come, we'd go to, we'd have IT Nation, we'd have these events, and I just felt like I was part of something bigger. I mean, that move was the first time ever done in our industry, and it's been tried to be replicated in many, but that pivot was incredible. Do you ever give yourself a lot of credit for that? You should.
No, I don't really give myself credit for anything. I always give other people credit for it, and I do that on purpose because there's no point in taking credit for anything. I give credit for IT Nation to Andrew Morgan.
Yeah.
Andrew Morgan went with me on a venture tech conference in Dallas, and on the flight back, he said, "We can do better." I looked at him and I go, "Whoa, we can do better than that?" He said, yeah, we could do better than that. And I said, really, tell me how we could do better than that. And he just on a napkin, literally on a napkin, because that's all we had. Yeah. Sitting next to each other on an hour and a half flight, right? So we don't even have much time, right? He sketched out like we could do, and he handed it to me and I go, okay, let's do it. And 90 days later, literally 90 days later, we had our first IT Nation. But what was the reason for it? Well, Andrew's concept was a sound one. He said, we can build a better community than even venture tech. And we can build a much more open community, even more so than venture tech. And I realized it's like, yeah, that really needs to happen. It's like, it's not really about our software or about what we know. It's really about how can we get the community together. Realize I'm doing the same thing with Cyber Bay. How do we get a like-minded community together, talking with each other and solving a problem and sharing their best practices? And so if you remember, the first couple years of IT Nation were very difficult because my whole my pulpit was all, we're not competing with each other.
Right.
We should share our best practices. We would all boats rise in the tide.
Right.
Stop looking at the person next to you and thinking you can't share your best known secrets with them where your business is successful. The person you're really competing with, and at the time it was so true, still true today, is Dell. Okay, that was when Dell was saying, we're just going to go direct to everybody. And they were cutting us out of the picture, right? And I said, that's who you're really competing against. And if we don't get our act together as an industry, then we're letting Dells and the HPs take over the industry. And like, we can't have that, right? And besides, they'll never do a good job. You still have to have that local support and service component. So we need to stand up strong up against that. And the only way we're going to do that is if we create a community and share our best practices. And so that was the whole concept. And, I knew it at the very beginning. First IT Nation, I realized where the real excitement happened was at the bars and at dinner. Right. It was the community speaking with each other because, some people actually took my challenge and started sharing their best practices. And it just started a self-fulfilling prophecy then. It just sort of became, a virtuous cycle. Like, oh, someone shared their best practice with me. I used that worked. Now I'm going to tell everyone else about it. And I'm going to tell them about the 3 or 4 other things that I figured out along the way, right? And that's how everybody benefits. And so it was all about sharing best practices and moving everyone to reoccurring revenue instead of one-time break-fix project revenue, right? And so my job was to educate them that their competition is not their competition, it's their asset, that we're all assets to each other, and that we need to move from break-fix to managed services or reoccurring revenue, because I had accidentally proven it in my own company, and I wanted everyone to know about that, right? I mean, Pricewaterhouse made me do it. Right. David showed me it was profitable. My brother showed me it was profitable. See, that's why I give credit to everyone else. David said, hey, man, this is something. I was like, I wasn't paying attention to that. I'm glad you showed that to me. Yeah, sure, let's do that. And it just changed not only our business, but it ended up changing an industry.
I get to talk to vendors every day, Arnie, and a lot of them back into the industry, right? We were trying to sell direct, and they said, go talk to the MSP. And then when I talk to them, I say, what do you like working? What do you like best about working with MSPs? And they all say, the way you guys share information, how you go into big rooms and they go into copier places that nobody wants to talk to each other, there's all competition. But in the MSP industry, we open up and we share. And I believe it's started with you and your team. Because of this attitude, it just rolled on and continued to this day. Your team, you, whoever it is, but it's still rolling to this day. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's a great, look, it's really simple. If you have something that you know is a winning idea, you just have to promote it enough until it's adopted, right? I mean, it was a no-brainer. Right. It's like, I mean, we were making so much money on managed services. Like I said, we were covering all of our costs, So, and then when you get this culture, right? So IT Nation was about creating a community and creating a culture.
Yes. Yeah.
And the culture was one of sharing. The culture was one of a community that supports each other, right? And I'm really so incredibly amazed by what that community has done. I mean, not only have they shared their best practices and helped each other out, but wow, I mean, in the times of hurricanes, floods, fires, that community comes to the aid of those who have been disparaged by that natural disaster. That is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. So, it's a really great culture that we have in the MSP community, and it is different, right? But I think everyone has learned, it's like, I'm way better off telling my best practices and sharing them, and then having others tell me theirs. And so that culture, once you benefit from that concept and that culture, it just becomes second nature, right? So they're going into these copier, and I know the copiers, they're like, we got all secrets. Like, and they're just like, and our teams, our MSP, community is just going in there saying, hey, this is how we do it.
That's how we do it.
You're telling us how you do it. It's like, and so, all the copier companies are becoming MSPs. And it's like, and we don't care. Yeah. It's like, good, because, and literally at the end of the day, the reason I left Price Waterhouse, by the way, and went into the PC is I believed in it. But the reason I believed in it was because I believed that PCs were power to the people, and that now you could actually create immense productivity in small to mid-sized businesses, which became true.
Wow.
Well, small to mid-sized businesses at that time represented 60% of the United States economy.
Amazing.
It's down to 40% now. But you talk about 60% of your economy that can be incredibly highly productive with computing technology. Well, that's a national security. That's a national benefit there. There's a national treasure to be had there, right? It's like, and so I always saw it as like, this is what's going to allow the other 60% of the economy to become way more productive. Well, what creates gross domestic product growth? Productivity. So there's not anything better that you could do for an economy than to create productivity, and technology creates that productivity. So my whole mission was, man, I'm going to be able to get this to the other 60% of the economy. Because, my dad was getting it to, with IBM, they were getting it to the upper 40%, but nobody could afford the mini computers or mainframes that IBM was selling. 60% of the United States economy could not afford it. So this was an answer to that. So my very first mission was, maybe I can make a dent in that, right? Maybe I can bring productivity down to 60% of the United States economy and create amazing productivity and leverage in the economy as a result. And that has proven to be true, right? But I've done it, can't do it on my own, right? Done it with creating the right software tools, creating the right community, creating the right culture, or catalyzing it, I should say. I'm not going to take credit for creating any of this, but recognizing that it could be done, and then taking steps to do it, and then promoting others to think the same way is what I think we do get credit for.
When I talk to MSPs, you mentioned it before, you touched on a couple of things. The three things that keep them up at night, and it's been pretty consistent over the last 5 or 6 years. First is cyber, right? They're worried about their clients getting attacked. They got to allocate resources. They're flat rate. They're probably going to get fired. They might even get sued. Second, you touched on it as well, is human capital. How am I going to get new people? How am I going to train these? If my big techs leave, how am I going to replace them? And then last, and I would dare say this is similar to small to medium businesses too, is growth. Private equity has poured so much money into it. Their friends are selling their MSPs. They're getting big cars. They're generally speaking not good at sales and marketing. How am I going to grow? What do you think about those 3 points?
Well, I'm addressing all of them, first of all, because I see all of those. Those are all our biggest problems right now. And I've always focused on what are our biggest problems today, but also what will be our biggest problems 2 and 3 years from now, and try to start solving for those, right? So what I see is what I've explained, which is, and I'll do it again, which is, look, they're all doing IT operations, but that's only half the job. The other half is security operations, right? So if you're only willing to do IT operations, you're now going to get, number one, you're going to have fierce competition, right? Okay. Number two, you're leaving half of your revenue on the table. So you talk about growth. It's like, you want to grow? Add security operations as well as IT operations, and manage the security operations as well as managing the IT operations. Lots of reasons to do that, because if you don't, any competitor that does the two will take your IT operations business away from you. So number one. Number two, if I'm not doing security operations, then I'm liable for the IT operations, and I'm basically liable as if I was doing the security operations. So, you haven't relinquished the liability associated with IT operations. So you might as well do the security operations, unless you get the client to sign off that they're not responsible as an MSP if they get hacked. I don't think anyone's getting those contracts signed, okay? Because most clients feel like you're doing the firewall, you're doing antivirus, you're doing multi-factor authentication. Don't tell me that you're not doing security operations is what the clients will say, right? But we all know that it's not about that. It's about all of that, plus, constantly scanning their digital attack surface and making sure that there's no openings, right? And that's what I love about connectsecure.com, great vulnerability scanner, very affordable, constantly scanning that perimeter, right? And so what I've asked the folks so I don't see anyone really stepping up to the plate because the problems are teaching. Just like I'm back to exactly where I was at the beginning of ConnectWise, which is, I had to convince the entire industry to move to managed services. Like, no, you can actually charge a fixed fee and you can actually make money on that. And actually you'll create wealth in your company because you'll get, a 5 or 6 or 3 to 5 to 6 multiplier on your recurring revenue. Whereas your project and break fix revenue, you're going to get a 1x on your valuation there. So the same will be said. The same is true now, right? So it's like you're doing managed services. That's great. Double your revenue with security operations. Double your revenue and eliminate your liability, okay? So what we're doing at Connect Secure is we've figured this out, okay? So we know that what are they missing? They're missing the professionals that they need, okay? Well, SkillBit is my answer to upskilling their existing tech engineers to be cyber engineers, or a way to create so many cyber engineers that they'll be able to hire one. And by the way, we have first dibs on these 3,000 students coming out of the Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity. I am creating a job board, okay? I am going to be matching these students up with jobs in the MSP community before they even graduate, right? Wow. So I am addressing the supply side of the professionals, why they're not professionals. I'm addressing that as well, okay? We're addressing affordable solutions that are comprehensive, like Connect Secure, okay? Scan your attack surface, grade that attack surface, improve that attack surface, right? So anytime I scan a surface, it's like they all flunk. It's like, you got a 60 out of 100, right? It's like you flunked. Do you want me to make this better? And, with just a bit of project work and a little bit of education, I can teach any MSP to run this vulnerability scanner and then to have their quarterly business meetings and to address the highest priority items that they need to secure. I also have the legal contracts that eliminate the legal liability.
Oh, wow.
Okay. That's another thing they need. And I also have now the legal services that if their client does get hacked, the first person they call is our legal hotline. They don't call the client. They call our legal hotline, open 24/7 by 7, 365, to say, what do you say and don't say in this situation? And one thing you don't say, even though you might feel it, is you don't say you're sorry. Okay? Love means never saying you're sorry, okay? So don't say you're sorry, okay? Because you just admitted guilt, all right? Now, you can be sorry and you can do things to help them, but you don't say it's your fault, right? So you limit your liability. So we've got legal services to limit your liability. We actually have, you can scan the attack surface and improve it from, say, a 60 to a 90, and we can teach you how to do that. We can teach your people how to do that, or we can do it for you, right? So, you got to think back on this huge, and I'm just going to make the analogy. Do you remember when Zenith Infotech came out with the online tape backup? Do you remember that?
I do.
Everyone bought it.
Crazy.
Why did they buy it? Because it was a problem that we didn't know how to solve. They had solved it. They'd packaged both the product and the services together. So we just got to sell it at about a 300% markup, right? So everybody signed up. Well, the same thing's happening with Connect Secure, because you don't need to, if you don't want to, you could do the scanning, but you say you don't have the professionals that know how to do it. Well, we do. We'll scan it for you on a monthly fee basis, right? So you can let us do that for you. In fact, we'll sell your clients on your cyber, on your security operations services. We have a bronze, silver, and gold service. We can sell your clients on, let's just start off with the bronze service. Let us sell your clients on the bronze service. And by the way, when we sell your first client, that covers the cost of the Connect Secure vulnerability scanner. So everything now is gravy to the bottom line. So you can mark it up like crazy. Okay, we can do the work for you, so you don't even have to do it. You don't have to do anything, right? You just have to, and you don't have to sell your clients. Let us sell your clients, right? So this is what needs to happen. Very affordable, profit-driven. Second client you sell, you're making money. You're putting money to the bottom line. You don't even have to bring in your own professionals. But hey, if you want to replace us, we're happy that you replace us. We've got the education curriculum to take your IT operations tech and turn them into a cyber tech. So they just take our classes and they'll get there, okay? Or we can do it for you, right? So it's have it your way, right? It's the Burger King approach. It's like, do it any way you want. It doesn't matter to me. We'll hold the pickle, we'll hold the lettuce. Special orders don't upset us, but you got to get into the cybersecurity world. You've got to do it. You've got to eliminate your liability. We need to work with you so that you eliminate your liability, so that you double your revenue, and so that you don't get your clients taken away by someone who does both IT operations and security operations. And so we think we've got and by the way, everyone thinks you need like 20 different products to do cybersecurity. That's not true at all. In fact, managed service providers are already doing 80% of the job, which is why they're getting sued, right? Because they're putting in the firewall, they're putting in the multi-factor authentication. If they're smart, they're getting their clients user awareness training. Those are all requirements to be secure, right? And in fact, if any MSP has cybersecurity insurance on their company, or if any of their clients have cybersecurity insurance, there's 6 attestations that you make when you sign that insurance policy. And if you're not doing all 6 things, they're not going to honor any claim that you have, okay? And those 6 things are, you got to have effective backups that can be restored. Yep, check, we're doing that. All MSPs are doing it. Got to have antivirus. Oh, check, we're doing that. Okay, good. So that's 2 out of 6. Okay, great. You've got to
backup, antivirus.
Backup, antivirus. You got to have multi-factor authentication. Oh, well, yeah, no brainer. We're doing that too, right? You have to be compliant. Okay, so you have to actually have some level of compliance with industry standards, depending on what industry you're with. So you've got to be compliant with those standards. And those standards are basically what I just said. You got to do those 3 things, is the minimum compliance. And then you have to do one more thing. You have to constantly assess the risk. Well, that's what ConnectSecure.com does for you, right? I mean, constantly assessing the risk, not only on what's on their network, but also their assets that are in, say, the Microsoft cloud or the Google cloud, right? So we assess all of those assets, right? We assess all of that, right? And we give you a score. You don't need much more than that. Most of the time, the things that are necessary to get from, say, a grade of 60 to a grade of, say, 85 or 90, it's all basic stuff. You got to have all those things in place. Oh, by the way, you also have to be scanning your surface. Oh, by the way, you also have to make sure that you're closing down whatever vulnerabilities are identified, right? So we give you the top 10 vulnerabilities. We literally, every time we scan, we say, here's the top 10 things that you should do. And if every quarter you're just attacking the top 3, you're making progress. And we can teach you how to use the reports, how to use the system, and how to then attack those 3 things. What are those 3 things? Almost always it's you're improperly configured, okay? Configure everything the right way, and a lot of the holes go away. So, and you can offer a bronze security service charging up to, I don't know, it depends on your geography, but let's just say an additional $90 to $100 a month per user of that company by doing these security operations that I just described, okay? And that's your bronze security service. And then the contract that we give you for that limits your liability to what you're doing and clearly states that no matter what we do, you can get hacked, and we'll make our best efforts to prevent that, but we can't guarantee that, right? Well, there you're off the hook from a legal liability standpoint. And by the way, anyone that wants to write their own contract that has that language in it, do so, okay? But if you want to get into the cybersecurity business, which you should, and a lot of you are not, you really should talk to Connect Secure, because they've got not only the product, but the set of services now available for you to do that. So I need other companies to follow suit with that. And I will give you, someone has to set the stage. Someone has to offer the right prices. Someone has to address the real problem, okay? And I got to just say that cybersecurity companies today that are out there, almost all of them are charging way too much.
Oh, really?
For way too little, right? Most cybersecurity solutions have a point solution. It's not at all comprehensive. It's a point solution. They try and make you think that it's going to be the panacea and take care of everything, and then they charge you $5, a seat. It's like crazy. It's like you cannot afford, in the managed service practice today, you can't afford the tools at the prices that they're offered in order to do it. And then you really need to be smart about what tools you use. Look, your cybersecurity insurance says you're doing 4 out of the 5 things you need to do. The only other thing that you need to do to make your clients compliant with cybersecurity is to scan their network, to scan their attack surface. You need to have a vulnerability scanner. Now they're compliant. And by the way, if they're not compliant, they're not going to get any, if they get hacked, they're not going to get any money from the insurance company, because they can't prove that they were scanning the attack surface. They can't prove that, right? You have to prove that you're doing all 5 things. So whether you as an MSP have cybersecurity insurance, or whether your clients do, that's your minimum hurdle, right? Everybody should try to be compliant with cybersecurity insurance requirements, right? That's kind of the minimum hurdle. That's the first hurdle. Then there's, okay, you're a bank, and so you've got to not just do that, you've got to be more compliant. You've got higher restrictions of compliance, right? And every industry has their set of compliance standards, right? So, and then now every nation state has their own set of compliance standards. And by the way, Connect Secure understands all of those standards, and you can just say, scan them up against this standard or that standard, or scan them against all these standards, and tell me what I need to do. And again, it can't get any simpler than giving you the top 10 things. So we actually teach your salespeople how to sell it. We can teach your technicians how to do the work, or we can do it for you. So, it's that approach that needs to be taken. And I'm just taking a page. What I've done with Connect Secure, my guidance to them has been, do that. That's what I did at ConnectWise, right? And what I did at ConnectWise was, when managed services really hit the market, as you recall, we were just a professional service automation solution. We were not remote monitoring and management. We did not have an RMM.
Yes.
Okay. But again, here comes Andrew Morgan into the picture. Andrew Morgan was working as a salesperson at Kaseya at the time, and he called me up and he said, Arnie, man, you need to go buy this company called LabTech out of
Ohio,
Toledo. Yeah. And I said, hey, Andrew, wait a minute. You're a salesperson at Kaseya. Why are you telling me this? Because I hate Kaseya, Arnie, okay? And I like you, okay? They're a bunch of rats. I don't like how they run their business, okay? I like your culture. I like you're honest. You're trying to take care of the community. Yeah. And so I'm just telling you this because now they're starting to clobber us, okay? And we're raising our prices, and we shouldn't. But, this is a way that you could come into the industry, which I think is a smart move, and you can actually right-size the pricing, right? So again, Andrew Morgan to the rescue, right? I give him credit for, he's the only reason that I ever went and bought LabTech, right? And then I realized, that's a brilliant move. Hey, Andrew, that's a brilliant move. He's like, yeah, I know. So anyway, I only bought LabTech because Kaseya was raising their prices, and they were being completely disruptive in the industry. And so managed service providers were getting priced out of doing managed services.
I remember.
You remember that? And so there was no stopping Kaseya from raising their prices, because there was no agent-based RMM solution that could hold water, right? There was Enable out there, a probe-based system that didn't work at all, right? It's like, come on. So I bought LabTech for one reason only, to right-size pricing, It just happened to be the smartest move I could have ever made from business. Yeah, but I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. I was thinking the community is really being harmed by Kaseya's predatory pricing. And the only way that they're going to stop is if they have a viable competitor. So what was fun is when we did buy LabTech and merge with LabTech, we came in and we just gutted the prices. We came in and we were like 1/10 of the price of Kaseya. And so then they ended up having to come down. And I just love that. So that's really what has to happen. Unfortunately, that's the same thing that has to happen in cybersecurity. Everyone's like crazy high prices that are not justified for solutions that do a teeny piece of the cybersecurity work that needs to be done. So, it needs to go in favor of companies like ConnectSecure, who are creating comprehensive solutions that you can build a cybersecurity practice around it alone, as well as the things that you're already doing, right? And start monetizing your biggest liability. Instead of making it your biggest liability, start making money off of it and limit your liability. And by the way, if you start with the bronze service offering, we'll teach you how to price that to your client. We'll take care of all that for you, okay? But, the hope is that you'll graduate to gold and, to silver and gold, and you'll start developing your own professional service team inside your organization to deliver cybersecurity practice. So every MSP has an IT operations practice, a managed service practice. They need to now add a cybersecurity practice to their organization. Now, we're giving them an easy way to do that, and I think that's the only way it's going to happen. Just like Zenith Infotech gave us all an easy way to do cloud backups and to really revolutionize how backups were done. And so I think this is a new opportunity to disrupt the marketplace and revolutionize how cybersecurity is done and delivered to the marketplace.
In 2007, ConnectWise told me to go get Kaseya.
Yep.
And Andrew Morgan sold me Kaseya in 2007.
Well, yeah, because, at that time, it's like I had partnered with Gerald Blackie, and Gerald and I had a brief conversation, and I just, he said, look, if we put our two, and he was pitching that we put our two companies together way back then, actually in 2006 he did this. So, but I knew their culture was so different from mine. I said, it's a great idea, Gerald, but I don't think our cultures would mesh. And anyway, so I was recommending their product. Gerald actually was interesting. Gerald, this is at the very beginning of the managed service industry. Gerald, I convinced him to look at managed service providers. He said, he called them ITSOs, and he's got that Australian or South African accent. He's like, ITSOs? You can't make any money off ITSOs. I'm doing enterprise, and I'm like, whoa, hold on, Gerald. Like, how many seats do you sell to enterprise? 2,000, 3,000. I go, okay, well, hold on. The average managed service provider has 60 end clients that have, on average, 20 users. So do the math on that. That's an enterprise size sale for you. So you should be selling it to ITSOs, okay? And by the way, don't call them ITSOs. They're managed service providers. They don't like being called ITSOs. No. And so actually I got him, and I brought him his first couple big deals, right? So I said, and I actually even set the price. So I said, here's a client, here's your first MSP, and you can only charge them 25 cents per agent. Right. So can you imagine that? Right. Can you imagine that? So Thrive actually was one of the first ones that I got. Thrive, I ended up cutting their deal with Kaseya at 25 cents an agent. Right. Kaseya. So I thought, this is fantastic. It's very affordable. Kind of like Gerald. It's a little creepy, but I kind of like him, Little did I know. Little did I know. But that all was working, right? So you would have been on the very early stages of that, And by the way, that was after we all tried Enable and failed miserably, right?
That's right.
So we had all tried Enable. We'd spent a fortune trying to put Enable in as our managed service product. It didn't work because it was probe-based, right? Kaseya was the first one that actually deployed an agent down there. Yeah. And by the way, funny story and I don't think Kaseya will ever tell this, but the true story of how Kaseya even got started. I'm trying to remember the names. I probably won't. Paul Wong was the original developer. I do remember the name, okay? But his partner, and I forgot his name, but his partner had a 16-year-old daughter that was just starting to get on the internet. And he was very worried about where she was going on the internet.
Whoa.
And so he made an agent and put it on her desktop to monitor where she went, okay, secretly. Okay, so Kaseya started by spying on a
Isn't that
teenage
something?
girl's activity on the internet. Okay, and he realizes like, wait a minute, we got something here, right? It's like, and so they ended up turning it into a product, right? But that's the actual origins of Kaseya, which was kind of amusing to me because you got what's that jabroni's name? Fred Vicola, right?
Oh.
Recently left Kaseya.
No
I think he
longer
got.
CEO.
My guess is he got fired, right? So it's like the guy's got like a yacht called Rim Job, like.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. RMM Job. Okay.
Oh,
Actually,
I
I
see.
see. Rim Job. Yeah. So like he's like, so they haven't
Fascinating.
strayed too far from where they started with this. They're concerned about young women. And by the way, I've seen him on his boat. We've got video of him on his boat with all these young women. It's like, what's going on here? It's like, so it's like,
When an MSP is selecting a vendor, what questions should they ask?
vendor for what?
For
What
any
products?
kind that they want to partner with. I mean, I have, maybe you'll disagree with me here. I think many MSPs are overtooled. They buy a lot of tools and they don't use them all.
Yeah.
But when they're selecting a vendor for a partner, what should they be looking for?
Well, they should, like any relationship, you should be looking for someone who has your best interest in mind. That's how you should pick your spouse. That's how you should pick your friends. That's how you should pick your companies. That should pick out all your relationships. Like, do they have my best interest in mind? Or are they just out for themselves, right? I think that's a pretty good one. I think, is there a solution all that it says it is? Because there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in sales. So if they're not willing to give you a free trial, I would be very suspicious. I think anyone that's not willing to let you try before you buy is hiding something.
Right.
Okay, I would say that. And then I would be very concerned about, do your math and figure out, like, can you afford this solution when it scales across your entire client base? What is that going to cost you, right? And then I guess I said it, but I mean, is the solution just a really minor point solution that only takes care of this small little thing? Or is it something that is broad and actually is comprehensive? So is it comprehensive? And then the other thing I think is really important, is it comprehensive? Is it affordable? And is it integratable with other solutions? How well does it integrate with other solutions? Because there's no way that one solution is going to do it all, right? So, and then what's unfortunate in the cybersecurity world is you have so many companies that have walled gardens, right? So they create their own suite and they don't actually integrate to anything beyond their little suite, right? And they won't really freely give out the APIs to anyone else to integrate. Well, that's just not going to work. So if someone's got a closed garden API suite and they don't want to offer APIs to other vendors to integrate to them, that's a big red flag to me as well. So don't have a free trial, not integrated to other people. Is your solution affordable? Or is it comprehensive enough for me to even bother taking on? Because I don't want 20 solutions. I only want a few, right?
Yeah, really important. Arnie, has there been anything like in the last month or so that you changed your mind on in any area?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I went to D.C., I went to Washington, D.C. and met with
Did you really?
legislators. I'll leave names out. And I was pitching, I met with one senator and one congressman from Florida. And I guess I just told you I met it's only one male congressman or one male senator. So I met with Senator Scott.
Yes.
And I told them, I pitched what I pitched to you, which is the real need for national cybersecurity defense. And they looked at me like I had lobsters crawling out of my ears.
Why?
I don't know. I think it's because it's not top of mind. And because cybersecurity defense is invisible, right? You can't see it. It's not like a physical border where, it's not like our physical southern border where you can see people crossing it, right? It's like you don't see that every nanosecond of every day, threat actors and nation states looking to do us harm are crossing over that digital border, right? Every nanosecond of every day, right? So it's invisible. And I think because it's invisible, it's unknown. And the only time that it ever surfaces is when we hear of a hack And that stays in the news for about 2 days and then it's gone, right? And then you never find out who did it. Who did that? And then even if you do find out who did that, it can never be traced back to a nation state, right? So there's always this proxy. The nation states will hire, like I said, China, the Chinese Communist Party puts out contracts to tech companies in China. Well, it's the tech company that's hacking you. Chinese Communist Party is never seen as the perpetrator, right? So there's plausible deniability. But if they were able to go and say, if all of this wasn't invisible, and you could see how many attacks are coming across every nanosecond of every day, and if you could trace them back to exactly where they're originating from, who's paying for it, we would be very, very concerned.
Wow.
And it's a bigger problem than our physical borders. So, and because it's all invisible, that's even makes it more dangerous because there's no urgency. There's no urgency. And because there's no traceability, there's no, that was Whisper X out of, we don't even know where they're out of, right? And they did the attack, so who cares? It's like, well, yeah, but did you know that it was the Chinese Communist Party that paid them to do it? And that attack last week was also paid by the Chinese Communist Party. And oh, by the way, did you know that these activities over here were paid for by Iran, and this one by Rocket Man in North Korea, right? So it's like if you could trace it back, you'd realize it's a really big national security issue. And I talked to, believe me, I talked to the people in CISA and NIST and high-level cybersecurity professionals. They all know where it's coming from. They know the threat. They know that it's real, but it doesn't filter down to our legislators, not yet.
I see.
So my new job is to educate them and to get in front of them and educate them. And then to work with the Trump administration, who seems to have their act together on this because they've reoriented all Homeland Security, NIST, and CISA on a new North Star set of policies, which I think are brilliant, right? And it's all based on AI first, right? So it's like we got to incorporate AI with cybersecurity. It's like, I'm glad they figured that out. I already figured that out. That's why I funded $40 million to the Bellini College of Artificial Intelligence and Cybersecurity. The two of those things have got to be the way that we move forward with cybersecurity, right? So got to have AI-powered cybersecurity, just have to have it, right? So I think the administration recognizes it. I think we're going to start to see laws passed around it. I think that I'm going to try and make what is invisible completely visible to legislators, and I think we'll see rapid progress, right? I mean, what's very optimistic, by the way, about the outlook for the United States of America, because all great technology comes out of right here, the good old USA, okay? And if we can keep our trade secrets to ourselves and not have them ripped off by the Chinese Communist Party, which they do every day, okay? And then they reproduce it in China for less, and then they flood our markets with it to try and crowd out where they actually got the intellectual property from. They actually destroy the company that they stole the intellectual property from. That's their whole game plan right there in a nutshell. But if we see that and we know that, we're going to take action. And I think that's the important thing to recognize. It's not invisible, and it's not just Whisper X out there in nowhere land that attacked us, and that doesn't matter. It's like, no, this is a concerted national effort for cyber espionage and cyber warfare and planting Trojan horses for when it's advantageous for them to flip the switch on all of this, right? To create havoc inside the United States of America. I kind of wish there would be a reason for them to flip the switch so we could see where it all is, right? We don't know where it all is. It's hidden, right? That also is invisible to us. The greatest hope of artificial intelligence is that we see patterns in the data, and that's where we're going next at Connect Secure, by the way, is, look, we gather this data from millions of locations. So we're gathering the essential data that you can now, when we apply AI to it, our hope and our belief is that we'll be able to see planted Trojan horses before they get activated, right? You know, because we got all that data. It's like there's patterns. If you get enough data, there's patterns in it that humans can't see, but that's what AI is great on, is seeing subtle patterns, right? That's what we hope will close us. And I told you I can take any company and take them from a flunking 60 on their cyber hygiene with Connect Secure, I can take them up to a 90 and 95. Well, the only way I can close the last gap is going to be with artificial intelligence. But the good news is Connect Secure gathers all that information necessary to apply AI to close that gap. So again, if you do just the basics that most managed service providers are doing today, antivirus, multi-factor authentication, backup, user awareness training, compliance, you just have to scan the network and not just once a year, but continuously, and then develop a cybersecurity practice around taking care of the top 3 things that quarter that it says that you need to deal with. And it will tell you exactly what to deal with. In fact, we're making it so simple now that with our top 10, we're now automating everything that we can. So now you're going to start seeing the top 10 list coming up, and it's going to say, click here and we'll just do that for you, right? And if we're not doing it for you, then we're going to say, here's how you do it as a human being, right? So we're trying to automate as much as possible and take the human component out. So I do believe that I know that every managed service provider can build a cybersecurity practice if they go about it the right way. It's not that hard.
So when I asked you what you changed your mind on, it would be that senators didn't really accept this. That's shocking to you. So you have to change your strategy.
My mind is when I go to that level and I realize that even they don't get it, then I realize the entire world does not get it.
I see.
Okay, so no one's seeing the problem that I see. I guess I'm a Don Quixote. I'm chasing windmills, but I think they're real.
How many more attacks do they need to see? I mean, there's attacks all the time. On the airline, Alaska Airlines just had to take down there, right? I mean, that's
who did it?
Yeah,
who did it?
We don't know.
Right, that's the thing. Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
And so we don't attribute it as a real concern. It's like, oh, they got taken down. Oh, poor Alaska Airlines. They'll recover.
I see.
So we look at it as Alaska Airlines got popped. No big deal.
Right.
They'll recover, or we hope they recover, right? Oh, Microsoft got popped on SharePoint this weekend. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're Microsoft. They'll recover. Yeah, but they don't realize if you zoomed out from these attacks and you could see behind the scenes, this is an orchestrated effort to bring down the United States of America, to bring down the West.
Amazing.
Because again, it's like they'll never look. We proved to the Axis powers, if you will, Iran, Russia, China, North Korea. We proved to them it's like don't mess with us in a real war. We will kick your ass, okay? You won't even know it's coming, okay? You won't even know what hit you, okay? We proved that with the B-2 bombers and the bunker busters. We proved that. It's like you won't even know it's coming. Our technology is so much better than China's, Russia's, North Korea, Iran's. It's like, and our military capabilities are only getting better, and our technology is only getting better. And we're embedding all of that in our military equipment, and we're aligning with so many nation states on this in the West. No one's ever going to be able to take advantage of the West. At some point, we're getting to that point. But you can, not kinetically or physically attack us, but way less expensive, way more effective is you attacking the Swiss cheese that represents our digital architecture, okay?
Not sure if you remember my story. So I started the MSP in the 90s, 93, and I sold in 2019, similar to what you did. Actually, you started in the 80s. But I was working way too hard, 14, 16-hour days. You're no stranger to this. And I wasn't paying attention to myself. Arnie, I'm putting my health in the back seat. I'm in front of the doctor. She tells me I'm at 340 pounds.
Were you really?
Yeah. It's a 46-inch waist.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And she says to me, if you don't lose this weight, you're not going to see your daughter graduate. My daughter's just born. Scared the hell out of me. I'm driving home, punching the steering wheel. I did this. This is my pie hole. I did this to myself. Next 6-7 months, I lost about 120 pounds, and I kept it off. So you can't look at it as a finishing line, right? These are lifelong changes.
Sure.
So when I tell people this story, they always say, what's your secret, what you do? And there's no secret. I think I asked in the beginning, how are you going to lose those 5 pounds? There's no real secret. Discipline, right? Motivation, focus, willpower. How does discipline play a role in your life, Arnie Bellini?
Well, discipline is everything, because the only thing you really have in this life is time, right? You got time. You better make the best use of that time that you have. And that's really what I get focused on, is like, what can I do to go to sleep tonight to be a better Arnie Bellini? What can I do today so when I go to sleep tonight, I've made the world somehow better, right? And so discipline plays a big role in that. And then balance as well. Like, you said you were, 380?
340. I'm now
340?
200, yeah.
Wow, okay.
46-inch waist to a 32, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's great. So that's not easy to do. It takes a lot of discipline. But what you find, and I think you found this too, is like discipline is your friend.
Yes.
Because chaos is your enemy. And the alternative to discipline is chaos or semi-chaos. You either let the day run you or you run the day, right? So it comes down to that. And I think, if you're going to make a difference in this world, or if you're going to be an effective, say, father, spouse, partner, business partner, if you're going to be effective, people expect you to get stuff done, right? I mean, you have responsibilities and obligations. Those should not be taken lightly. And so you're not going to be able to accomplish all that you could accomplish with the time you're given on earth unless you have a decent amount of discipline. And then discipline is your friend, because once discipline's in place, you become productive. And once you become productive, you create meaning in your life. And I think everyone says the pursuit of happiness. It's like, I think the original authors of the Constitution got that a little bit, Declaration of Independence got that wrong. I think you cannot pursue happiness. You can pursue meaning. And if you pursue meaning, then happiness every once in a while shows up.
It's a byproduct.
Because you're pursuing meaning, right? So I think it's important for people to understand. I think you can get disciplined by understanding why it is that you even exist. Why is it that you get up in the morning? Why should anyone care? Ask those Simon Sinek questions. Start with why. It's like, and then give yourself a good answer for that, right? I mean, and that means you have to step up to some challenge. I can be a better father. I can be a better husband. I can be a better business partner.
Citizen.
I can learn more. I can be a better citizen. I can learn more. I can, and by doing all of those things, I'm improving the community around me,
right,
and I'm making the world a better place, right? So I think discipline comes into that. You're not going to get much done if you don't have discipline. But I don't think discipline is something that's hard either. So discipline is saying, I want to establish my life on a certain set of patterns that make me productive, that create meaning in my life, and then every once in a while, sunshine, happiness, the sunshine of happiness will shine through, right? If I get it right, a bunch of things have to get in place, right? It's like a grid. It's like, but if you don't have meaning, you never get any sunshine, no happiness ever shining through that, right? So, but when you've got your life aligned with meaning, well, you've opened up the ability for happiness to shine through, right? So I think a lot of people get that wrong because they're pursuing happiness, and the pursuit of pure happiness is just hedonism, okay?
Good point.
The pursuit
It's
of
unhealthy.
meaning, not healthy, right? It gets you to 340 pounds, right? So it's like, by the way, what was it?
Pizza, soda.
I was going to say, what was it that did you in?
No exercise. I stopped playing, soccer.
No, that's it. That's fine. I mean, you're still burning 2,000 calories a day just with your autonomous being. Okay?
Yes.
So forget the exercise. It's what you were putting in your mouth.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Terrible. In New Haven, it was all pizza. I'm not sleeping well, right? Because when you're that healthy, you're unhealthy, and your body's remarkable. I didn't really feel it.
Amazing.
I didn't really, and I would, months later, I would punch my friends and say, why didn't you tell me I was getting this big, to kind of, with my tongue in my cheek, of course, but still completely my fault. And I have a picture of all the clothes I got rid of because I said, I'm not keeping these, because people do that. They keep the clothes to kind of go back into it. But again, I think I have this ongoing theory that discipline is a spectrum. And you mentioned some of those. Routine, willpower, focus. And I like how you said that, you also said patterns. I think that's part of routine. And you said it's not hard. Some people I ask that question to, and they have like a militant response. Discipline means I'm being punished, and I'm afraid of it. I don't want it. But you have a very different attitude towards it.
Yeah. Well, because, look, your diet is your pattern of eating. Okay, just start with what your problem was. You had the wrong pattern of eating.
Soda.
So the discipline was simple. It's like you had to say, well, I got to adopt a different pattern of eating.
That's right.
Which means I have to change my choices of food. And once you did that and stuck to it for just a little bit of time, you realize the benefit of it, not just because you were losing weight, but because you felt better, because your body was becoming more healthy, because the only way you get to 340 is by eating unhealthy. So your body's not processing what it should process nearly as easily, right? So your energy level gets zapped. You know, it's difficult to get around. You use a lot of energy just to move. And so, you know, the discipline that you applied to yourself very quickly created benefits in your life that sustained you adopting that pattern of eating, right? And then you realize the benefits, and then it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. It became a virtuous cycle. It's like, wow, this is good. I want to do more of it. And so you get, if you're doing discipline the right way, then you're trying to create a better environment in one way, shape, or form in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's your eating pattern, your business pattern, your exercise pattern. But those benefits are what draw you into the discipline and keep you on the straight and narrow for that, right? So it's not about what I can't do or what I don't want to do or what I shouldn't do. It's not the negative side. It's really focused on the positive side of what discipline brings to your life, and the joy that and the benefits that it can bring to your life. I think is the way that I've always focused on it. So you know, like you, it's like I've had plenty of things that I've had to overcome. You know, I'm right now I'm the 7th fastest old guy in the United States in sprint triathlon. I didn't think I could ever do that, and I didn't think my body would ever respond at the age of 66 to doing high intensity, you know, 170 beats per minute, you know, sprint triathlons. I thought, no, that's not going to happen. It's like, well, no, but the human body is an amazing thing. It will do anything that you slowly apply it to do, you know. And so I'm in better shape now than I was at 21.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. I'm stronger now. I'm faster now. I'm more alert now. You know, I'm very shocked that I could be doing this at 66, right? Awesome. I mean, I'm going to a world championship in Australia in October. Wow. And my goal is to be one of the 20 fastest old guys in the world, right? I'm the 7th fastest old guy in the United States. I want to be one of the top 20 fastest old guys globally in the world, right? So, I mean, that's my big audacious goal for that, right? But I didn't think I could ever get there, right? But it's just one day at a time, you know, and let the benefits draw you into making it a habit, right? That's how you do it.
Yeah. But she knew what she was doing, my doctor, because she said she brought my daughter into it. You know, and so as I just kind of come to Jesus mode, so I'm thinking, I can abuse myself all I want, but now I've got this family and I've got this beautiful girl that I can't believe I have any responsibility of bringing into this world. So it was that which was the main catalyst. Okay, it's not just me; it's the family anymore, and that's what made the turnaround.
Sure, yeah, and the other side of it is like your contribution to the world around you, including your family, is just so much diminished if you're not going to do that, right? So, I mean, she pointed out just your daughter, but it goes way beyond that. Your employees and your company benefited tremendously from you getting in shape. Good point. The business benefited tremendously from you getting in shape. The raises that you were able to give those people happened because you had discipline and you got yourself in shape. So that was not just maybe you had 10, 20 employees. It's not just about those employees. It's about the families that those salaries support. So like now you start, looking at the network effect of you having discipline on a diet, and you start cascading that into the community that surrounds you, and you realize like, whoa, I'm actually doing the whole community a disservice by not having this basic discipline in place, right? And not only that, I'm going to die, right? Well, there's that too, right? But it's like, but there's a broader effect that you have, right? So you look at the network effect, and then all of a sudden you're going to have even more guilt if you're not doing the right thing.
That reminds me of a story. I remember when we had bought a couple of companies, and so they got the MSP up to about 50 people, and we had a picnic. And I remember I was at the picnic, Arnie, and I remember meeting some of the employees' kids and grandkids, and I remember getting scared. It's like, this thing that I built out of my father's garage is now affecting grandkids. And I didn't have a good time at that picnic. And I remember leaving it and going straight to the office thinking, I've really got to get my stuff together here. I mean, I'm affecting all of these families. And it was just a major shift. Did you ever have something similar with ConnectWise?
Oh, yeah. So my favorite event of the year wasn't IT Nation. That was my second favorite event. My favorite event was the ConnectWise picnic. Okay, and we would rent out Lorry Park Zoo, and we'd bring the whole team over there, and they'd bring their kids and their grandkids. I always liked that because to me, I wanted to see the effect that we had. And to me, it also was that stark reminder that like all of these people are depending on me doing the right things. So what's great about that is, to rise to the occasion of that knowledge it's a great opportunity to build your own leadership capabilities, right? I think we need more of that. I think when people realize the amazing responsibility that they have as an employer, you'll see it at a company picnic, right?
Yeah,
and it'll either scare you into doing the right thing or it'll encourage you to continue to do the right thing, right?
That's what it did. What motivates you right now, Arnie? What's your main motivation?
Well, I mean, at a high level is creating meaning in my life, I suppose. I mean, my retirement completely failed. When I sold ConnectWise, the idea was you're 60 years old and you should be done, and so now go enjoy. And you can only enjoy so much for so long, and it gets boring, right?
Yes.
And why is that? Because there's no meaning.
Right.
My traveling or seeing, Italy or whatever, it's like that's I'm not doing anybody any good there. I mean, it's not, there's no meaning in that, right? There's joy in that maybe, but
sure.
So I have to always create meaning, which means I have to have an effect on my community. And then, I also believe the Bible, when you say, to those who are given much, much is expected. Well, I was given quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've been very blessed. And I know that, and I don't take that for granted. And I feel like, okay, but every time I'm blessed with whatever it is, and ConnectWise exit was a pretty big blessing, right? I got to do something with that. I can't. That's not for me. That's for the community. And then, I actually even made my senior year at University of Florida. I graduated with my accounting degree from University of Florida, and I think like a lot of college students, at some point you start doing some soul searching, and you're kind of, you're wondering, what is this all about, right? And at that time, it was the early 80s. It was 1980. There were these jabronis on Wall Street who were making millions of dollars as traders, and they were like squandering all their money on the silliest things, jet airplanes, cocaine, and escorts, right? It was like, what? And so, I'm doing my soul searching, and I'm wrestling with God now. I'm going, all right, God, this makes no sense to me. Okay, so like, let's have a talk. Okay, why are you letting these jabronis profit, and then squander the money? It's like, why wouldn't you take a good Catholic kid like me and bless me, and I'll do something good with it. I promise you, I'll do something good with it. And even at the time, I said. Bless me, you know what? I'll put a number to it. And I don't know where the number came from. I said, $23 million. I will build a new 23 Catholic church cathedral in Tampa. Okay, this was my thought. Okay, this is you know what? You can get a cathedral out of me. How about that? Okay,
you're dealing.
I'm dealing with them. I'm negotiating with God. Wrestling, negotiating.
Michael
with God.
Jordan number? Where's 23?
I don't know where the 23 came from. Okay. Well, no, the 23 was like, I don't know. It was a weird number. I thought, you'll never, ever be able to do that. Okay.
I see.
So it was this crazy high odd number that I picked that I said, nah, you'll never be able to do that. So, okay, so that make that the goal, because I needed him to have I'm negotiating, right? So I'm saying, okay, so if I'm going to give back $23 million, you're going to have to make this a pretty big success, right? And then you're going to have to trust me that I'm going to do what I said. Right. Well, I have never taken $23 million and built the Catholic cathedral, but I don't think that was the real intent. I've now taken well over $100 million and poured it into Florida and the local community in good ways. So I'm way beyond what I promised. Okay. But hey, look, that was a covenant. And, I kept my part of the bargain. He kept his, she kept her part, his part of the bargain. Right. And so I've always stuck with that covenant. And I feel like that's actually still in place, right? So it's not about, make me successful, and it just continues on, right? And what's interesting is the more that I do, the more doors open, the more that I give, and this is really weird, the more money I put out, the more money comes in. Really strange, is biblical, right? I mean, like all these sort of biblical principles. Yeah, I'm not a real theologian or anything like that. I mean, I'm just a Catholic kid, that believes in God and thinks, there's something to that. And well, if there's something to that, then why don't I make a deal with God, right? And I did, and I've stuck to the bargain, and she has as well. So, and I think a lot of that is based on knowing, like having certainty about it. Like I go about what I do knowing I'm going to have success, knowing that I'm going to run into obstacles, knowing that I will persevere and bust through all of those if I stay with it, right? And that's something that my parents taught me, at a very young age. You put your mind to something, anything, you can get it done, right? But I mean, I also believe that because I believe I have divine intervention, in some cases. So I also am very susceptible to, if I do not follow through with the covenant, being struck dead. So there's that.
I didn't know that side of you. Very interesting. So in your pursuit of motivation, or especially your motivation of meaning and impact, how do you measure success?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, I measure success by, so the simple way that you measure success is the effect that you're having, right? So what's the output of your, I've got my input that I'm inputting here, there, and everywhere. What's the output? Well, my success has been I've invested $32 million into the state of Florida's ecology, and I've gotten the state to commit $3 billion.
Wow.
Pretty good return on investment, right? I've down, by the way, we're also have gotten the counties, we've gotten 5 counties to agree to put a 1 penny tax to conserve their wild places. And that amounts to almost 40 million extra. Wow. So for a $32 million investment already, I've got $3.5 billion of return on that. So that's a big success, right? The companies that we invest in, right? I mean, that's an easy one, right? It's like, how much did we put in and how much are we growing their valuation, right? But for me, it's more important to not so much what we're growing in their valuation, but what are they doing? What's their good deed? What are they doing? And they're all cybersecurity companies that I've made pledge. They must provide very comprehensive solutions at very affordable prices and focus on the managed service community, right? Because they're really in need of getting to that other half of the revenue, that's, security operations side of the revenue that they're not getting to. So I see that as I'm going to measure success there by how many MSPs that we convert from just doing IT operations to also doing security operations, right? So that's a measurement of success there. And we're doing that every single day. So, that happens on a regular basis. I measure success by how many jobs we're creating in the Tampa Bay area. I told you we're already up to about 15,000, and I've pledged 70,000. So, those high-tech jobs. I like to do things that are quantifiable so that I can see the results. Because that's what's encouraging, right? It's like, and that's, okay, you asked me discipline. So my discipline these days is I wear a Garmin watch all the time. I've got to somehow crank out 1,000 active calories every day. It's not necessarily easy, but that's my KPI, right? So I've got to walk 10,000 steps a day. So there's my measured success, right? It's like, did I get my 1,000 active calories? Did I get my 10,000 steps in? So those are my measurement. So I try and put, in every company that we invest in, they've got to have their set of KPIs that they report back to us. So a lot of it is identifying the KPIs that create success and then constantly monitoring those. Because that's what really encourages me too, by the way, is like seeing those numbers improve, right? It
does.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you're treating everything just like the tech company. I mean, that's the way you think. That's the way you see numbers. You're motivated that way. But you still have this, I was going to say theological, but you still have this side of you that has God. Your approach to problem solving, generally, I'm going to have an art versus science question for here. I would say it's more science than art. You're still using some gut, but I would say more science.
Mostly science. All science. Everything that I do, like Elon Musk, is based on first principles. So if you can't prove it in the physical world, it doesn't make any sense. So, it's like all of them are based on first principles. Everything's based on science and data. Okay. I didn't even dare to go to the state of Florida to ask for the Wildlife Corridor Act to be passed until I had already done a $500,000 project with McKinsey to say, here's the science and here's the data. And here's our really beautiful story behind the science and the data, but here's the science and the data. Because it's always the science and the data that gets it done, right? It's always about that, right? What are your KPIs? What are your personal KPIs? And those KPIs also create discipline. That's the beauty of KPIs, right? So, I told you my personal KPIs. I only have 2 every day, right? I mean, that's my, well, the other side of it is like how much did I move the needle forward in every one of my other pursuits, right? But for my own personal discipline, that's the answer there. But you have KPIs for everything, right? I have my KPIs for how successful have I been at the state level in politics? How successful have I been at the county level in politics? Getting ready to give myself a KPI to see how successful I can be at the federal level, right? I'm very driven by that. I feel like, listen, I have been blessed with a lot of energy.
Yes.
And the ability to zoom out and see things that maybe other people can't see, I guess. I don't know. It surprises me that that's even something, but I guess it is. And then I am very much affected by what I see when I zoom out. And if you're willing to zoom out, you're going to see things that are going to scare you. And then I get, that fear of that basically is telling me in the world of cybersecurity, this is a real concern that I have. I have great fear about it. I've been given great resources to do something about it. And so then that comes in the covenant with God. It's like, well, then, buddy, get busy doing something about it, okay? There's a reason that you saw that problem. There's a reason you begin with the resources to solve that problem. Go slay that Goliath, okay? Get a rock, get a sling, go after it, okay? So, I mean, that's what motivates me, right? And, I have a lot of victories along the way. I have a lot of more defeats than victories along the way, but I celebrate those victories.
Arnie, Bellini, a great pleasure talking to you today. Thank you I know you're real busy. We've talked for almost 3 hours here, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hey, Joe, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's great seeing you again.
Nice to see you.
And keep the weight off.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening and/or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with 1 or 2 of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.